All right, it's NBA draft night. Welcome to the Krueger Show. We got a full house rolling. Man, I'm fired up. I was just telling the fellas that this is my favorite night of the year. NBA draft night. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show. Larry Krueger with you. And, of course, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. Open 7 days a week in Marin. 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California, brings us the Krueger Show on this Thursday night, June the 22nd, better known as NBA Draft Night. And we got my favorites in the house. Bottom screen, Damon Bruce from the Plus, looking good with the sweatshirt. And as we're sitting here, only one of his Indiana Hoosiers has been selected.
Which is a crime.
From Locked On Warriors, Cyrus Satsis, the man, the myth, the legend himself. He'll play us a little ditty on the grand piano. Carl Foster on the bottom of the screen. We've got Frank Red up top, the man, the myth, the legend, and of course, In the Dungeon is his new show on YouTube, and he's a good follow on Twitter at Big Frank Red and Bay Area Baller. Bay Area Baller 18 is his YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, support all these guys' ventures. They're the best in the biz, and that's why they're here. All right, huge day today for the Warriors. They trade Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. Damon, I've seen your video on it. Cy and I know how Cy pretty much feels. I kind of know how Red and Baller feel because we did a live stream middle of the day when that news broke. We also had the NBA draft. Warriors took a player from Santa Clara at 19. Let's get it rolling here. Why don't we start with the trade? And why don't we start with you, Carl, since I don't know how you feel about it. But the news of the day and the biggest news of all is that Jordan Poole has been traded with Ryan Rollins and a protected first-round pick and a second-round pick in a future draft, all going to the Wizards for Chris Paul, who's 38. What'd you think, Carl?
Two things that come out really quickly. Number one, it's a statement about the legends, Steph, Dre, and Clay. I think you can probably presume that there's some things that are in place to make sure that both of them are going to be here for the next couple of years, helping to contribute to see if the Warriors can take one more bite at the apple. Number two, it's what I call addition by subtraction. And that's not to take anything away from the talent of Jordan Poole. He's a tremendously gifted young man. I just think his focus and where his head is in terms of what's important to him, what his agenda is all about, isn't about what they're about, which is the drive for 5. They want to get that 5th ring. They want to see if they can go into immortality with other NBA players who've had a chance to win 5 rings. And so I think that was a statement. And let's just be honest, something that I know somebody like Damon would love to hear. If you can make a decision that'll also impact your bottom line, that gets you out of that second apron, that puts you in a position to maybe make some flexible moves down the line in future years, you've got to take an opportunity to do it unless the guys that you have that you're cashing out are so great that you think they can help lead you to a title if they're in the lead. So that's really my feeling. I actually was happy when I saw it because I said it means they're going to take another shot with who they got.
Let's jump it over to Damon. Damon, I saw your video, and for those who missed it, it's a great video, and Damon's just simplified things. Hey, you're trading an injured 30 or a healthy 24-year-old for an injured 38-year-old. You didn't love it first blush. You've had a few hours to think about it and maybe talk to some people and get a different perspective or maybe more of the same perspective. Damon, give me your read on the deal.
It's a stunner. I mean, Mike Dunleavy's first decision is a major one. Obviously, this gives them the financial flexibility that they were seeking, and the team that had the doesn't matter what it costs obviously is operating a little bit differently now. It's a big move. I mean, I think Jordan Poole's going to lead the NBA in scoring, and if you want to say he's going to be selfish in that regard, all right. But I mean, this is a really talented guy who's growth is not linear. It's not a straight line. And I think that looking at the regression in the playoffs is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is he's always out there 24 and, he's got an awful lot of attributes. Being a good teammate, being liked by the Warriors in that locker room clearly was not one of them. I think that if the big three, the pillars, could have thrown him a lifeline, they would have, they could have if they wanted to, and maybe they didn't. As I look at this just from a Chris Paul standpoint, do they have an agreement that for the very first time in his career, he's going to be coming off the bench? He's never come off the bench a single game in his entire professional life. So they better have that crystal clear in order to put this into play. His hamstrings are made of silk. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like Chris Paul's missing playoff games if the Warriors are a playoff team next year, because that's kind of what happens. And if they can load manage him to the point where that doesn't happen, Rick Celebrini is a great trainer. I mean, I guess we can celebrate that. The whole thing is surprising. The basketball team's IQ certainly went up. I guarantee you there are 4 fewer turnovers per game on this one transaction alone. So I do like it. They're as much of a defensive disaster as they were with Jordan Poole after trading Jordan Poole. They are a small team that got smaller. They didn't make a particularly large draft pick either. So I hope you like small ball, because that's what the Warriors are serving up exclusively. I don't think they got a player over 6'10" on this roster right now. So it is it's an interesting day, and Mike Dunleavy Jr. is certainly going to be good for guys who are in business like us talking sports, because boy, he's given us a lot to talk about. And Jordan Poole being here for 4 years didn't even last 4 days. So I guess we can't take him at face value.
All right. I definitely want to hear from Frank and from Cy and Baller, because, we've already kind of weighed in on this. Let me just give you my perspective, and then we'll free for all on this trade. One, I hated it when I saw it. I actually suggested, I think, to you guys or to some collection of you guys in the last few days. But my idea was Jordan Poole to the Wizards for Chris Paul and their lottery pick, because I viewed Jordan Poole as 24, trading for a 38-year-old hurt Chris Paul as Washington getting the better end of the deal, and that the lottery pick would even it out. But when the Warriors extended Jordan Poole and gave him that ugly money, I said so at the time. I said, this is devaluing him, and everybody knew they wanted to move him. The other thing I'll say on this trade is Draymond Green, if he does not re-sign, this is a colossal failure trade. The assumption I'm making is that Draymond Green leveraged this deal by opting out and giving the Warriors an ultimatum, and that Steve Kerr added to that leverage when he publicly came out and said the Warriors are not a title contender without Draymond Green. That gave the Wizards leverage in the deal. That and Joe Lacob saving well over $100 million in the future on the NBA salary cap, avoiding all the punitive luxury tax and repeater tax penalties. I think that was a big impetus in this trade. I think Golden State's all in on the upcoming season. And when I read JD's breakdown where Chris Paul can be dealt next summer for a $30 million player, and the team that gets CP3 can, walk away from him and owe him nothing, it gives the Warriors a pivot point next year. And then I just think ultimately this was a deal that was about cleaning up the Warriors' cap mess and chemistry mess. And I look at Jordan Poole, guys, as a broken player who, to me is a overpaid player who doesn't like to do what he's good at and does like to do what he's not good at. He does become Washington's number one scoring option, may lead the league in scoring, but I thought he was broken. And I think the Warriors, because of the ugly contract that they gave him, they had to move him at a loss. So shame on them for giving him that money to begin with. I called it out as a huge overpay at the time. And that's my take on this deal. I think when I see it on the surface, I hated it. But when you factor in that their chemistry and their cap is cleaned up now, I do, and they still have the pivot ability in a year from now to move off of Paul. It's not as horrendous as I thought when I first saw the deal. Anybody feel free to jump in. Give us your assessment if you haven't already on the trade before we get to the draft.
I am stunned that picks leave the Warriors. I thought that they would be returned too. Like, that's another one of the, they really had to include picks to get this deal done. And You're right. If Draymond Green doesn't re-sign, Mike Dunleavy Jr. should be fired that day. And maybe he has a really short. I mean, if Draymond does not re-sign, if this was a deal done without Draymond signing off on basically I'm not going anywhere, it will be a disaster.
Baller, Frank, Cy, jump in on the trade.
Draymond Green's not going anywhere. I'll tell you that. Draymond Green's coming back. And Jordan Poole, you're right, Larry. He's overpaid, right? When they gave him that money, I think they were expecting to see some Jordan Poole improvement in terms of efficiency, defensively. No, after he got the money, it looked like he actually regressed. You know, the shot selection was abysmal. Yeah. Jordan Poole, he makes plays that make you say, wow, that was spectacular with some of his finishes at the lane and just how then he makes plays that make you say, wow, that was embarrassingly awful. Why would you do that, Jordan Poole? The negative sometimes felt like it outweighed the positive. So in my opinion, the trade of Jordan Poole for Chris Paul does make him better next year. And like you said, Larry, I agree with you. It was a money-saving move as well, because if they are going to bring Draymond back, they couldn't have the Jordan Poole money on the books 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So that was one of the reasons they had to pivot off of Poole, and they did get better in the short term.
Cy, Red, jump in. What do you guys think?
I don't think there's any way you can judge this trade until we see what the finished product is. If the Warriors do nothing else, and if the Warriors do indeed become this team of hobbits, like Damon said, like, you know, do you like small ball? I fucking hate small ball. Small ball does not belong in the NBA. The only exception to that was the Warriors of the last 5 years, because they had such incredible shooting that you can get away with it. You can space people out. You can beat people with the speed that comes with small ball. But when you don't have that elite level of shooting, and when you don't have Klay Thompson at the peak of his powers and this great supporting cast, it doesn't work. It's asinine. Height is important in basketball for a very good reason. But with that said, like, you know, we don't know what the finished product is. And another perk of bringing Chris Paul into the mix is he's a well-liked individual by most NBA players, not all, but most. So hopefully he can help in terms of recruiting for veteran minimum deals. Chris Paul wants a title. He's never had one. Steph wants his 5th. They're all clearly Chris Paul is here for that mission. So maybe his recruiting efforts bear some fruition, and they get a lot of talent on veteran minimum deals. So, but until we find out what the final roster is, I can't judge it right now. If this is the finished product, they're screwed. How do you beat Denver with this team? It's impossible. You don't. You need size, plain and simple. So I'm curious to see what they do. I'm curious to see if there's any more trades, or if the remainder of the additions are through veteran minimum deals. But I'll say this: Chris Paul is an upgrade from Jordan Poole if he stays healthy. If he's healthy, if he's available in April, it's an upgrade for one season. If he's not healthy, you just completely you just gave away Jordan Poole for basically nothing. So that's right.
Red.
I like the deal. I mean, earlier I thought that I loved it. I don't know if I love it, but I definitely like it. And I like it from a financial standpoint for the reasons that you guys have spoke to. And also, when I look at how basketball is played, just like Damon said 4 less turnovers per game. What does that equate to? That equates to points and better defense, you know? So I think that there'll be – yes, and I think they'll be more efficient. We also saw Steph Curry in the playoffs, and we know that Steph is not as good when the ball is in his hands all the time. He has to bring the ball up and create offense. Going on the premise that Chris Paul makes it through the playoffs, you know, there's no guarantee. But he's going to help Steph Curry a lot. The game's going to be a lot easier for Steph. It's going to be a lot easier for Klay, because Chris Paul can run offense. I also think that part of the reason why the younger guys potentially did not advance as much is because they were not receptive to the voices that were speaking to them. Maybe Chris Paul, who is a definite leader, will give them the same message but through a different voice. I'm thinking Kuminga right now, and maybe he'll take a couple of levels up because he gets a different voice from Chris Paul. So I don't think they're finished acquiring pieces. Are there a lot of veterans out there that we have to wait and see if they're going to sign? But on the surface, I like this deal. Chris Paul makes them better. Jordan Poole, I have no hate nowhere towards this guy. He had to go. And now he's going to really see what life is about in Washington, D.C. Yeah. Hopefully he's going to find a lot of good sushi restaurants in D.C. because he's going to have a lot of long nights after losses, man.
Did you guys see the interview that Chris Paul did? I mean, he didn't seem happy about the trade. What's your read on that? They're like, hey, he just seemed, well, either he really just has a disdain for the media and he's a veteran NBA player that just he's at his wit's end. But it's like, hey, have you talked to Steph? Yeah, I talked to Steph. Hey, what'd you think of the deal? Yeah, I've been asked that a lot. Yeah, what do you think you'll be able to bring to the club? He's like, well, we're going to try to win games. It was like, let me just go through this song and dance, tap dance, and I'm not giving you anything. I mean, you see him, he's so glib in the State Farm commercials, and then you see that, and it's like, whoa, is he happy about the situation? Does he want to be here? Does he like Draymond? Does he like Steph? He seems like an incredible competitor. Is he such a competitor that it's going to take him time to warm to them? He didn't seem ecstatic about joining the Warriors. Am I reading that wrong?
It's been a long week for him, Larry. Let's just be honest. He didn't like the way things ended in Phoenix. I'm not saying he definitely wanted to stay. He might have seen that, hey, maybe this mix isn't exactly what we thought it could be, and it may be hard to get this mix to work. But he wanted to be in control. I mean, that's what Chris Paul is. I mean, you don't become the president of the Players Association by accident. He's a guy who's been in the league for 18 years. So clearly he wants to be treated with a modicum of respect. And I think he felt disrespected by how Phoenix did it, and particularly having Isaiah Thomas, who's rated ahead of him on most people's greatest point guards of all time poll, to get jettisoned out of that franchise. So you may just need to give him maybe a couple of weeks just to kind of let some of the wear and tear of the week kind of run its course. And then you may hear a very different public response when he comes here and sits down with the Bay Area media.
Damon, you want to jump in? Go ahead.
I think Carl's awfully right about it. It's been a very long week for Chris Paul. He is watching the end of his career become, he's instead of being the man controlling where he's swimming, he's a bobber out on the ocean, just kind of going with the current of everything happening around him. And I don't think that's the way he envisioned it at this particular time in his career. So I think he is just stunned by the whole thing and how it all happened. And he's a little bit spun around by it all. Plus he does, dislike the media. Plus, when I had Marcus Thompson on talking to him just yesterday, he said, look, man, Chris Paul doesn't like the Warriors and the Warriors don't like Chris Paul. Like, look it up. They got history. And that could be a part of it too. What I think Chris Paul needs to embrace is where he is in his career, what he's going to mean, how he can best help this team by running its second unit. And, when I thought about what's the best of this, Chris Paul throwing lobs to Jonathan Kuminga sounds like it could be a highlight reel in the making. That could be pretty exciting. Chris Paul throwing up lobs to Wiggins. That sounds like it could be a fun ticket to buy. But I think he's a little embarrassed by the week, but he'll be less embarrassed when he realizes that at the age of 38, he's about to join the best team he's ever been on. The Warriors might be descending in a way, and Chris Paul's no longer an ascending player, but maybe it does fit together. And Cyrus, you're right. I don't think we can really judge this until we see it. It's going to be a little bit of a mix and match. Watch them not come out of the gates like gangbusters, because Chris Paul, like Carl's saying, he likes to be in control. He likes to be in control of the entire offense. He likes to slow the game down and make methodical decisions. The Warriors want to get out and run. So it's going to be a little bit of a stylistic battle. Can I interrupt
real quick? Yeah. Can I interrupt? There's breaking news, and I like this story. The Warriors are acquiring Trayce Jackson-Davis.
There you go.
There we go. Now I love this pick. How are they doing it,
yes.
Cy?
The Warriors Shams has dropped this. I hope I got this right.
Is this for PBJ?
The Warriors are acquiring the number 57 pick from Washington and taking Trayce Jackson-Davis. Damon, that's your boy, right, from Indiana?
That to me,
that's a great addition. That is a great. Is PB&J in that move?
What
I don't
value?
know. I saw that in the chat. That's why I started looking things up, and then I saw this bomb just drop. So I'm trying to find that right now if it's true.
Trey Young in the chat says we're getting, listen, do I have a mouse in my pocket?
Patrick Baldwin.
Trayce
Shams,
Jackson Davis.
Shams has it right here. Shams, the Warriors are trading Patrick Baldwin Jr. to the Wizards as part of the Chris Paul Jordan Poole trade. So Patrick Baldwin goes to the Wizards. That's 2 minutes ago. I still don't see anything about. Oh, here it is. Shams again. The Warriors are acquiring the 57 pick from Washington for Trayce Jackson Davis. I need to call Raymond Ritter immediately and get that first interview. Hoosiers got to stick together.
That's exciting, Damon.
I was afraid that the Lakers were going to come back on Trayce Jackson Davis. They took Jalen Hood-Schifino, and I thought I'd have to move to L.A. and cover the Lakers now, the Los Angeles Hoosiers. I was ready to do that.
Let's talk about Trayce Jackson Davis. We'll get to the Santa Clara kid in a second, but Damon, since you're going to jet first tonight because you've been going all day, let's get your thoughts. This is your team. I always feel like everybody knows the sport. Everybody in this chat knows the sport, but we all know our teams a little bit better than we know other teams. Your team, for people who don't know Damon, is the Indiana Hoosiers. So you watch a lot of Hoosier ball. You wear those god-awful red and white pants around. What? give us your breakdown on Trayce Jackson Davis. This is one of my favorite players in the draft.
Same.
He's a small ball 5. Again, I think he fits what the Warriors do. Imagine Kevon Looney with more ability to finish around the rim. He's a little bit of a shot blocker, even though he's a bit of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He doesn't have the big long arms, but he's got the long torso. His daddy's got that DNA of an NBA player coursing through his veins, and he's not going to play outside of his skis. He's not a shooter, so he won't be taking bad shots. He's a lefty. He's a goofy footer. He is someone who, when he started at Indiana, he was overhyped and disappointed. And when you expected less of him, he started giving you much, much more. He grew into his role as a leader. He's smart. He's mature. He's seen an awful lot of reps. He's 23, so it's not another kid. I like the fit as much as I like the player. I do think that this is a really good move for the Warriors. And all I can tell you is that my phone is literally shaking right now. So I do need to get on this and weigh in on this in other fronts, including my guys who I went to college with. So this is a big, big development. And I'll tell you, on a day where I was wondering what the hell are the Warriors doing, at least it ends with something that I think is a great fit. I'm going to miss Jordan Poole. I like Jordan Poole more than anybody in this town. I really did. Let's see what Podziemski ends up looking like. I feel like that's a little bit of a reach, but I guess you get to reach in the first round if you get a bargain in the next round. And I think the Warriors just picked up, let's call it second round Draymond Green Hope 2.0. I mean, they got a player in Draymond in the second round. I think they got a player tonight in Trayce Jackson Davis.
Trayce Jackson Davis is in the Sabonis type mold. He's a physical, tough, around the rim guy who's now actually starting to space out a little bit. He actually looked pretty good at the draft combine, actually shooting the ball. You can tell he's put some time in. What I love about him, as you said, Damon, he's mature, he's game ready, he's game experienced. He's played under systems where he's had to learn basketball as opposed to just hooping, and he brings a physicality. And just like when the OKC team last year drafted the second Jalen Williams out of Arkansas, who I thought was a steal in the second round, this is an absolute beautiful pick by Mike Dunleavy Jr. and his staff.
Well, just to add to this, like the Ringer, for example, had Trayce Jackson Davis projected to go at number 27. Something tells me that the Warriors saw him still available this late and was like, "Oh my God, like we got to pounce on this." It's incredible. I mean, he was 57. It's insane that many teams just whiffed. That's incredible. I mean,
it is. It's incredible. To me, this guy had one of the best years of anybody in college basketball this year. He was a 20-10 guy for Indiana. He's got 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. What I like about him, he's a rebounder. He's a shot blocker. He's got a quick second jump. He doesn't try to do what he can't do. I like this player. I think he's going to extend his range out. According to the reports that I'd heard in the workouts around the league, he had been showing a little bit more range. And I don't see him as a guy to play with Draymond. I almost see him as a replacement for Draymond down the road. But this guy's got a lot to him, and I think this was a phenomenal addition. Now, I'm a PBJ fan myself too. I like the shooting ability of PBJ, but I feel like I'd rather have Trayce Jackson Davis over PBJ. I would. And is Rollins still in the deal, or was this instead of Rollins?
I don't know. I imagine
Hopefully
they're both
still
in
in
it,
the
but
deal.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Guys, it's great being with you tonight. You're the best. We'll do it
Come
again.
on.
Go Hoosiers.
We're gonna do locked up. We're gonna collaborate soon, man. Longer.
We do. We do. Good to see everybody. Go Hoosiers.
The Plus.
Plus is alive, baby. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Jackson
Nothing
Davis.
Plus.
Jackson Davis is going to play in the NBA at least 7-8 years. And I think the Warriors' biggest challenge this year was they didn't have a second-round pick because he's an obvious pick for the Golden State Warriors. And I give the Warriors credit, particularly Dunleavy, for and maybe this is a little, elbow at Bob Myers. You can like PBJ, but PBJ showed last year that he was one-dimensional. And you can't be a one-dimensional player in the NBA. You just can't because the competition level is too good. Jackson Davis, his shortcomings was if he plays over 20 minutes a game and he gets fouled a lot, he doesn't shoot 70% from the free throw line. That's problematic. But he is a above-average defensive rebounder. He's a physical defender. As you said, Larry, he has one of the best second jumps in all of basketball, and he's not intimidated by the physicality of the game. So he's a guy who's going to play right away, and you get him on the cheap. You're going to sign him for one of those 3-year make-do deals where you 2 years guaranteed for about $800,000. So this is a slam dunk. Even with PBJ going, I think it's a brilliant move.
Yeah,
it comes down to the fact, Larry, as Red and I have talked about before, the one thing that the Warriors have had to do was they've had to make hard decisions. They made a hard decision 3 years ago that we want to try to preserve our dynasty and develop our future dynasty. They tried it. It didn't work. They scrapped it. They didn't allow the embarrassment of drafting guys or picking up pieces that don't work. You go ahead and you let them go. You don't feel bad about it, and you move on. Now it's a clear message. We need guys who can step into the arena the very first time we see them, and they're ready to play in NBA games. Not they have the ability to play in NBA games. And that's with no disrespect to PBJ. I thought he could maybe become a floor spacer, kind of like Bjelica. But like Red said, he's not a defender. He's not really that big of a competitor. And the Warriors are trying to get rid of guys that are not huge competitors and find guys that are going to win the toughness game. Because if you're going to compete against Denver, if you're going to compete against the other teams in the Western Conference, you've got to be tougher and you've also got to execute.
I think even though PBJ's had 1 year in the league now, I think Jackson Davis he's more ready to play. He's a senior. He was one of the more polished players this year in college basketball. If you watched him, he made a noticeable jump in production from last year to this year. In fact, both of the Warriors picks did. Before we talk about the first round pick, Mikey has the update on the deal. So it's CP3. Here's the Wizards received Jordan Poole, Patrick Baldwin Jr., a top 20 protected 2030 first round draft choice from the Warriors, a 2027 second round pick, and the Warriors get Chris Paul and the 57th pick, which they have just turned into Trayce Jackson Davis. Yeah.
Which is huge. This might be the best news of the whole day, which is
so Rollins stays. That means Rollins stays, right? I guess.
No.
That would be a positive, by the way, if you stay. I like Rollins. I would honestly rather keep Rollins than PBJ. It also goes to show
that's interesting. Rollins, I agree with you. I'd rather have Rollins too. I didn't love Rollins as a throw-in because I think Rollins has potential to really be quite a bit better than what we saw this year. Correct. And that could look bad on the back end. And he's a great kid. I mean, they're both good kids. PBJ's a good guy too.
Yeah.
But Rollins, I think, has a little bit of CJ McCollum's game.
Yep.
And if it flourishes, he could become that kind of a player with greater strength. Let's go.
I want to jump in on Jackson Davis, give you some thoughts real quick. You know, I didn't do it. I'm not a fake it till you make it guy. I didn't do a deep dive on Jackson Davis, but I had heard a lot of good things about him. And, you know, you mentioned the 21 points, 11 rebounds, which is dominant. But as I'm going box score searching, I'm seeing 4 assists a game. Like that's more than most teams' point guards average in college. So that's just giving me the mindset that
a passer.
Indiana was giving him the rock and letting him facilitate and make some plays, which we know the Warriors, they love having Draymond or Looney in the high post and dudes running around and having them make decisions. So the 4 assists a game is really encouraging. And then, you know, you're thinking, okay, he's undersized at 6'9", or not undersized, but 3 blocks a game. I mean, that's more than the Duke kid likely had on a per game basis. So just as I'm box score searching, things are jumping out at me.
Yeah, go look at, you know, the best thing to do, go to ESPN.com and check out Jackson Davis's game log. And you're going to see there's some really consistent double-doubles with blocks, with assists. You know, they ran their offense through him at times. I think his shot, I think he'll extend range too. Go ahead, Carl.
Think Sabonis.
Wow.
That is the type of guy that he can become, because just like Sabonis, who many people, when he played in Gonzaga, very few people saw and projected the kind of success he's had in the NBA. People thought he was going to be a good, reliable, serviceable big. But the one thing that he shares with Trayce Jackson Davis is an NBA pedigree, a dad who knows the game, knows the locker room, knows the business, has taught his son how to be prepared. He went through some adversity. Like Damon said, he didn't have the kind of early success that a lot of guys want to have as freshmen. I kind of get excited when guys don't have early success, because you find out, do they have any ability to adapt and become a better player by working and going through adversity? And so I think it's a great pickup. Mike Dunleavy Jr. has taken a lot of flack as a former player. He hadn't played in a while, in at least 7 years. But I think a lot of people are going to instantly say, hey, Bob has left, but the cupboard isn't bare in terms of guys in the front office who can do some creative things to try to build a roster.
Jeff Porter says Dunleavy had a hell of a first draft, booted all of Bob Myers' picks, and made this his team right away. I like it. All right, let's get to the Santa Clara kid, because this is an interesting guy. You know, we all know, or you know, I don't know if Cy and Baller know, but the rest of us know Bill Duffy. Heck, Carl, you stood up in his wedding, right? I mean, you know him really, really well. Frank, I'm sure you know him really well as well. He's obviously maybe the top international agent in the NBA. His BDA sports representation firm is right here in Walnut Creek. His kid and my kid have played ball against each other on the baseball diamond, on the football field. And Bill, I consider a very good friend. And I texted with him earlier. I said, you know, I called him earlier this month, and he said, hey, you know what? I said, who do you got in the draft? I'd love to have some of these guys on the show. And he gave me his 5 guys. It was Grady Dick. And one of the guys was this kid from Santa Clara. How do you pronounce it?
Podziemski?
Podziemski?
Yeah, literally the best way to pronounce his name is just replace the D, the Z, and the I with a J.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Yeah. So he's a Podziemski.
Paczemski, exactly.
Well, he said, hey, you really should get Brandin on your show. We really, I really like him, and obviously he's his client. But let's talk a little bit about that pick, because I think that's a really interesting selection. He played for Herb Sendek. Red, we talked about him this afternoon. He's a combo guard. He's a point guard, 2 guard. To me, there's a little bit of white chocolate in him. He's a little bit of Jason Williams. He's not that level of a showman, but he's got some flash to his game. He's got great court vision, led the WCC in double-doubles this year, WCC Player of the Year, Co-Player of the Year with Drew Timme, buried on the bench at Illinois, transferred because he said Jalen Williams inspired him to come out to Santa Clara. He played for Sendek. He averaged 19.9 a game this year, shot 44% from beyond the arc. more importantly, the guy's got 39-inch vertical, grabbed almost 9 rebounds a game.
That part's crazy. That part's
led
crazy.
the WCC in rebounding. Then he went to Chicago. He really looked good in the pre-draft. He's a good passer. He got invited to the green room, I believe, as recently as yesterday. And he's a lefty. He's good off the dribble. Third Santa Clara player to go in the first round. The only thing I'll say, I think he's ready to contribute right away. He's very left-hand dominant. Very left-hand dominant. He's really going to have to work hard on developing his right hand. But he's a Wisconsin kid who went to a military high school, a military academy. He's got a lot of confidence. He's got a presence about him. Kind of a little bit of a version of a Dante DiVincenzo. I think that, the comp I saw on NBADraft.net was Matthew Dellavedova. I think DiVincenzo is a better comp, really, than Dellavedova, in my opinion. All right, now I'll throw it to you guys. What do you know about Podziemski, and what did you think of the pick?
Two things. One, Ryan Madry, who's one of the assistant coaches for Herb Sindick, played for me with the Soldiers.
Right.
And I went up there last summer before the season and watched their group work out, watch them play an open gym a lot, spent some time watching tape, watching their whole system, particularly right after Jalen Williams had been drafted. And they talked about just their formula. Santa Clara has a very unique formula. They were one of the top teams in terms of pace and their style of play, which is one of the reasons that the kid transferred. Like he said, he saw what happened to Jalen Williams, and he said, hey, I want that same type of opportunity. When I look at him, he reminds me of some of the Serbian guards. We've seen a couple of those. I mean, Marshallonis was one. Those guys that can just get to the basket. They're very attack strong. You also had one who played in Miami, he and his brother. By the way, Larry, James Harden is extremely left, and yet he's still been going left his whole career. Guys who are good at going there to their strong hand, find a way to get there. I love the kid. I think he's got a brilliant mind for the game. I think he fits the Warrior culture in terms of highly intelligent, a Santa Clara kid, because when the Warriors play offense, it's kind of like watching Harvard at a debate. They're playing in a different way than other teams are playing. And so you're noticing that the Warriors are going away from the strategy of just taking great athletes who have the ability to maybe become better basketball players and taking really good basketball players. And if they happen to be really good athletes, that's a bonus. This kid can shoot the heck out of the ball. He's physical. He's tough. Anybody who grabs 9 rebounds, Red, would you want him on your team? And the guy plays 2 guard who can also play point guard. So I think he's going to be an excellent addition. I think he's mature, and I think he's going to see the floor very quickly.
All right, let me say this. I mean, we all root for. We're all rooting for the kid. All right. I didn't have him going at 19. I had him going somewhere between 25 and 30. I thought he was a first-round draft pick, but when I saw that happen, I knew that he benefited from having Duff as an agent. Okay, Bill Duffy has a lot of power in the NBA. And, Duff got him signed by the Warriors. He did. And Duff and some of these other top agents have the ability to do that. So all he has to do now is go out there and make the Warriors and make Duff look good, because he does have talent. I don't particularly love his shot pocket. When he gets it up high, he has a phenomenal touch. He has great range, but he brings it up through his chest. I don't particularly like that. So it'll be interesting to see how he transitions from college to the NBA. I want to see him in the summer league. I like Ben Shepherd more. And even this afternoon, I went back and I looked at Ben Shepherd's tape again, and I was like, wow. And then Indiana drafted a kid later. He's going to be a hit. So I think Ben Shepherd is a better player, but I think this young man is a first-round pick. He's probably going to benefit from superior coaching, being with the Warriors. I'm rooting for him. Now, the only other thing is, man, sometimes you got to pivot, all right? That kid from Villanova Cam Whitmore, I would have taken a long look at him.
He went next to Houston.
He went next. That kid is an all-star. If he gets right, he's an all-star. So
and that's the part that bugged me. I when he slipped to 19, I was excited for a minute because I thought the Warriors were going to get him.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they go. Now,
Why did he slip to 19 though?
Health reasons. I read a report that I don't know what the specifics were.
Wasn't just health reasons. Wasn't just health reasons, Cyrus.
I don't know. That's part of that. I don't know the
He's
specifics
an
yet.
isolation player. He's the guy that Red and I talk about. He's a mercenary. Put him on the floor. He's hunting for buckets. That doesn't fit the Warriors system. He's not a basketball player. He's a hooper. He's a tremendous hooper. He's a ridiculous specimen. We've seen specimens come to this system and they're not effective. They sent one to Detroit named James Wiseman. You just have to come to grips with the fact that better basketball player isn't, hey, this guy's better if they're playing one-on-one. It's, can they pick up this system and can they flourish in it? Some guys can't.
Foss, he's special. I watched about 10 games of him this year at Villanova, and he was hurt the first 7. And yes, he and the coach kind of had some feeling out issues and all that other stuff, but I saw enough of him. He did not go totally away from the Villanova system. I think Houston got a steal. All right, that's all I'm going to say.
That's all I'm going to tell you.
One other note here, late breaking. Oh, go ahead, Carl.
The Houston system can't be a steal. They got a bunch of disparate parts that do not fit, and Ime Udoka is going to figure out who can stick and who can't, and he'll put pressure on leadership to move the guys who can't and keep the guys who can.
I'm just looking forward to the day when the Warriors have a coach who doesn't have such a rigid system that you just have to X out 90% of potential players because they don't fit your system. It's ridiculous. If that system works without Stephen Curry, Stephen Curry, I would support it. But I'm not seeing that system work without Stephen Curry. That is way too rigid and closed-minded to be shutting doors on great players just because they don't fit your system.
You ever see the triangle work without Mike and Scotty or Kobe and Shaq?
Yes.
Great systems fit great players because great players also need really good coaching and systems. And you've got to take the benefit of it. Eventually, Steve Kerr will not be the coach here at some point in his life.
I can't wait.
The year that Mike played baseball, Chicago ran the triangle perfectly.
And they ended up where?
Losing to the Knicks.
Losing in the conference finals, right?
Yeah, losing to my Knicks to my benefit on a BS call with Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
That was a great year.
Because Greg Popovich supposedly has a great system.
How's that been working? Great player running the triangle.
Look at Greg Popovich's system. How has that been working for the Spurs for the last 5 years? Great players bring results, not systems. You can have it work together if you have the talent, but if you don't have the talent, your system is worthless. And
we all know that side, but the bottom line is, Carl, great players also
let me finish, please. If the Warriors are closing the door on that much talent because Kerr is that picky, that's asinine to me. Be a little more flexible instead of being the my way or the highway kind of rigidity. I don't like it, man.
You remember the great physical specimen the Warriors drafted who went to Fordham and played at Villanova?
I missed it.
Foss, it's not no comparison. Foss. Cam Whitmore is a 5-star player. Yeah, Eric Pascal went to Fordham. He went to my school. He was a 3-year guy out of high school. Three-star. There's no comparison.
The Whitmore highlight reel is pretty spectacular.
Be a great player.
Come on, Foss.
A lot of people thought he was going to be a really good player.
Come on, Foss. Really?
If you love Cam Whitmore that much, there are 18 general managers that disagree with you. I hope you're right.
And as we learned constantly, Carl, most general managers in this game are incompetent nincompoops, man. This league is run with incompetency. What do you mean, come on?
Then everybody would be a nincompoop.
Most of them are. Nepotism is rampant. Nepotism is rampant in the NBA. The NBA is all – fuck, you know what? If you're going to talk over me all day, Carl, you have at it. I'll shut up, man, because it's fucking rude. Go ahead.
Let's just relax a little bit, okay? Let's not. Come on, we're just talking hoops here.
Well, I'm just trying to finish sentences here, and I'm getting interrupted every other.
Finish your point, Si. Finish your point. I want to hear it.
Well, my point is I already said it, man. Like you can't if your system alone is not going to bring championships, you have to have talent. Steve Kerr has not shown once that he can do this without Stephen Curry and without all these great players. Greg Popovich has this supposedly amazing system. How the F have the Spurs been doing the last 5 years? They've been cellar dwellers. They've been a playing team. You need talent. And if Steve Kerr's going to constantly shut the door on talent because in his eyes, they don't fit his system, that's going to come back to bite you in the ass if it isn't already. And I just don't agree with that, man. I think
but you're making a huge assumption. The assumption is that you're making a huge assumption that Kerr that the Warriors would have drafted Whitmore, but Kerr said no. And we have no knowledge of that on that front at all.
Do you not think that Kerr's influence is really playing into all this? I mean,
you know what, Si, that's totally. I mean, I really have no idea. I really have no idea. For all I know, they're run like George Steinbrenner's old Yankees, where they're all sitting in a side room and Joe comes out and says, we're picking this guy. I don't know. Or maybe it's Larry Harris, or maybe it's Dunleavy, or maybe they truly have a consensus, or maybe they lock in on certain guys. I'll give you another angle on this thing. Maybe they didn't feel like Whitmore was going to be there. I don't know what the Whitmore physical issues were, but there's something there. And like, there's also, I mean, I'll give you another guy that went tonight in the second round, Amani Bates. Amani Bates is an incredible talent. I mean, he's a 6'8", 6'10", 6'9", 6'10", two guard who can get his shot at will, but he's got a gun charge, and there's sometimes off the court issues. And these teams do deep dives on these players. They build up dossiers of information, and so it could be that they were sold on their guy and weren't flexible. It could be that there was some off-court issue or some injury combination that made them look away. I do agree with Carl from the standpoint of I don't know if I can come down super hard on a guy that I saw projected like 6 or 7 earlier this year in NBADraft.net, and he was there at 19.
Right.
To me, obviously, there are a number of guys who get paid money for, millions of dollars in some cases to make these decisions that stayed away. I will say this. When I saw him on the board and I hadn't done the deep dive on him, this is like maybe pick 16. I just went to YouTube and started watching him, and the overwhelming highlights of him probably the best dunker in the entire draft. This guy's maybe going to win a dunk contest. To me, he looked like a combination of Al Harrington and Jay Rich. I mean, he's just like a freak of nature, a jumper, runner, crazy athlete. I maybe would have taken a flyer on him, but I'm not going to condemn them for not.
Well, and if you're watching the draft, Larry, like Jay Billis and JJ and all those guys were saying whoever lands him at this point is getting a steal. I mean, so if you're saying they're wrong too, then if you're saying that there was something was going on,
there were some other guys.
Sometimes talent slips.
Too.
Yeah. So I mean, and do guys make mistakes? I don't think anybody here is saying definitively one way or another. One bit of good news, I think, because I really like this player and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. This is from Dennis Wong. He says undrafted free agent Javon Johnson of DePaul has reached an agreement on a 1-year deal with the Warriors. This is according to his agent. We now have 2 sources. Chris Haynes is reporting this as well. This is a 6'6" 2-guard from Decatur, Alabama, who's a great athlete. Mm-hmm. And he also averaged 41% this year from beyond the arc and shot 77% from the line, scored 14 a game for DePaul. I don't know how many of you guys or if you guys have seen Javon Johnson, but he easily could have been drafted in the second round. And to get him as an undrafted guy, let's see what he looks like in Vegas in a few weeks. Does anybody have any knowledge or has seen Javon Johnson? Because his athleticism
24.
is top flight. He's older.
He's 24. He's older. He's 6'6", 205. He's a kid who played in AAU for a long time, always been a talent. The questions that you're noticing is the Warriors are trying to take guys who have a little bit more seasoning and are a little bit more ready for the pro game. And I think we're going to start seeing that more and more over the next 2 years. Hey, I don't disagree with Cyrus about the very simple fact that we all know if you don't have talent, you can't win. Nobody can coach bums to anything. But you do have to have something systemic that you have that gives you a strategic advantage. And the Warriors have a strategic advantage in how they play because it is so unique. It does require you to find guys that are high IQ guys and guys that are low IQ guys and don't adapt very quickly. They tend to struggle. And whatever your individual weakness is, it's going to showcase really quickly in their system. Guys who can't screen, guys who don't move the ball very well, or guys that are ball stoppers. Hey, Whitmore's an amazing talent. If you watched him in a workout one-on-one, he would look amazing, but he doesn't move the ball very much. So that just kind of doesn't fit. And that's the thing. You have to decide what piece fits. Maybe this guy Johnson fits better than they think he does.
I mean, Chris Paul doesn't fit the Warriors at all. I mean, I'm very curious to know how that's going to work out.
We welcome in JD as well, John Dickinson, who joins us. JD, good to see you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, what's up, fellas?
What's up?
You got me?
You know, you know everybody here. You know Cy, you know Carl, you know Frank, you know Baller, you know me too well. Now, give me your perspective on whatever direction you want to go. We started off talking about the trade. Then we started talking about the Trayce Jackson-Davis angle because that kind of broke as we spoke. I just mentioned an undrafted player that the Warriors have signed, and we were getting into it about the Santa Clara kid as well. Some people like him. Some people felt like the Warriors should have gone with Whitmore. But go ahead, since you're the newest face in the room here, give us your perspective on the happenings of the day. What stood out to you? How do you feel?
Well, I think they got two players in the draft that have at least the opportunity to play immediately, at least a better opportunity to play immediately than some of the players they've taken in the last couple of years. And so I know Mike Dunleavy Jr., I was just down for the beginning of his press conference here at Chase Center. He said they had Podziemski as high as 11 on their board. And so, for him to be around at 19, I think that was kind of a no-brainer pick for them. Again, just bringing you into what their thinking was on it. I know Whitmore was the guy who slipped. I personally liked Chris Murray because the one thing that I was steadfast on going into this draft was if the Warriors were going to make a pick and or acquire another pick, whoever they picked had to be able to play. And if the player is not able to play, or you wondered whether he's going to be able to play, then you probably should put him in a package for a younger veteran type player that could be able to play. And so, it still remains to be seen because I think that some of the players the Warriors have drafted the last few years, I think we would all agree that we would have thought by this point they'd be a little farther along. We don't need to necessarily get into the debate as to whose fault that is. We've had that conversation or why and if it's deserved. But here we are. And so the Warriors can't be in a position in my mind where they continue to do that because I look at their projected depth chart right now, which maybe is a little bit silly to do because, we're a week away from free agency and a lot of different things can happen. It's still pretty young for as old as it is in the Jordan Poole, Chris Paul trade. It's still pretty young as you look, if you want to say CP3 is your 6 and Gary Payton II's your 7, we're still talking about Kuminga and Moody and the kid from Santa Clara and, Trayce Jackson-Davis is as, top 11 if you want to, as it stands right now. And that's a lot of young to be in your top 11, even if there's some more experienced young players that they selected tonight. I like Podziemski's skill set, his ability to be a combo guard, his ability to shoot the three. The Warriors needed shooting. I'd be a little concerned about his defense. We had Herb Sendek on 95.7 The Game tonight right after the pick. He really praised his tenacity in addition to his basketball IQ. He's a kid that's going to work and fight and scrap and claw and has a craving to be better and understand what he needs to be better at and work at it. So I think that's promising. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis is a steal at 57. I mean, yeah. I think he's just an absolute steal. I mean, I thought he was going to be in the 20s. I know some people had him even higher than that, but they had a much higher grade on him, obviously, according to Mike Dunleavy, and you got to give up something to get. And so I understand that, seeing Patrick Baldwin Jr.'s name pop up as now being involved in this Chris Paul, Jordan Poole deal, and he's going to Washington. I think that was painful probably for some that thought, hey, he projected to be a stretch 4. It's interesting. I think, Mike Dunleavy, traded last year's first-round pick within the first week of taking the job. I think there's something interesting maybe to be said there as well. And does it to acquire a 4-year player that's 23 years old who I think has the ability, even at 6'9", because of his wingspan and his shot blocking ability and athleticism and versatility. He has the ability to be a force on both ends of the floor at a level and in a way that we haven't seen the Warriors really have a young big man. Like, I think he's a pick and roll player on offense that can roll and dunk. He loves throwing down on people. Like, he's got that, like, guys that love to throw down, that's an attitude thing. That's an edge thing. And he's got that. So I like that. I think he's a good screener, which I think the Warriors are going to like. And I think he's somebody that can face up a little bit and attack and get point, especially if he's put in position coming off of some of the actions that the Warriors run, where maybe, he's the screener and the ball gets kicked back to him and he can kind of take somebody real quick off the dribble and create. And so I like that move. I'll let other people jump in. I can give you my thoughts on the Chris Paul Poole trade. We can maybe get back to that, but I've been kind of rambling here for the first 5 minutes, so we'll let some other folks get in. But those are my thoughts on the picks. I didn't see the undrafted. I hadn't seen that yet. I popped down for the press conference. Who was the undrafted guy?
Javon Johnson, who's a Decatur, Alabama guy who, played this year for DePaul, and Carl said he's an older player. He's a 6'6", 200-pound two guard who averaged 14 a game this year for the Demon Deacons or the Blue Demons, I should say, and shot 41% from beyond the arc, 77% from the foul line. That was the only one. If there's another one, I didn't see it. Brian Iglesias, who I like to refer to as 95.7 Brian, says Dunleavy just said that Trayce Jackson-Davis will be on the 15-man roster. He says that's huge news for the Warriors, and it doesn't seem to bode well for Jonathan Kuminga. There was talk that the Pacers really wanted Jonathan.
I disagree with that. I think
Okay.
Trayce Jackson-Davis is a 5. I think Trayce Jackson-Davis is a 5. So after watching him and reading more about him, like I think he projects to be a 5. Like he's a center. Like he can defend. He's a rim protector. He's a dunker. He's a versatile, switchable, I think, defender on the perimeter at the 5.
He's a passer.
Everybody wants that. I mean, he's a passer. Like I think he projects to be a 5. The more I've looked at him in the last half hour.
But I want to jump in on Podziemski, because I haven't given you my take on Podziemski post draft. We touched on him before the draft when we were talking at noon today. But Podziemski, Larry, you said he is really left hand dominant, and I like how Carl. I was going to ask you guys what the adjustment would be, because in my mind, as a one-hand dominant player, I'm worried at the next level that the length of these athletes are really going to make it more difficult on him, as if they're going to know he's so left-hand dominant. But let me tell you what I like about him. Obviously, he's a sniper, 44% from distance. And what I liked as much as the three-point shot is his floater. His ability just to get into the lane and get up that floater. Oh, it's sweet. And he's really accurate with the floater. That being said, defensively, I'm seeing issues. The lateral quickness is a question mark. Some of the clips I was watching, the point guard for the USF Dons is blowing past him. The Sam Houston point guard's blowing right by him. So I got some concerns on the defensive end. I don't hate the pick because Podziemski he's a crafty scorer. He's skilled. He's a good passer. You see him throwing up all these accurate lobs. Dudes are finishing with dunks. So he's got some skill. I am concerned with how one-hand dominant he is defensively. And, personally, it wouldn't have been my pick. I think if you wanted Podziemski, maybe you trade down a few spots. I would have preferred Whitmore.
My sentiments exactly, Baller. Just a side note. My sentiments exactly. Go ahead.
Chris Murray was kind of the guy who I've had penciled in as who I wanted to draft. But here's the thing. I got the feeling that the Warriors, they made their decision before the draft even started that they were taking Podziemski. It was, Whitmore slipped this way. I don't know if they had tunnel vision. Maybe Carl's right and they just didn't see him as a fit. But in my mind, when Whitmore's slipping, I was salivating at the mouth because you're right. I'm watching these Cam Whitmore highlights in these plays. He's dunking all over dudes. He's a freak show athletically. Looked like he had that dog in him. I think he's got the higher ceiling. But hey, Podziemski, he can shoot the lights out. Hey, catch and shoot off the dribble. He can stroke it, but by no means is he a perfect prospect.
Can he stay in front of anybody? That's my big question. Can he stay in front of anybody?
And just to go off that, like Kristen Peak of Yahoo Sports, whose opinion on the draft I respect more than anyone else's on the planet by a mile, she reported the reason why Cam Whitmore dropped or slipped is because of his medical evaluation that took place at the NBA Draft Combine. No other information was revealed, so who knows what was in there. That is the only thing that was reported as to a reason why he slipped. But again, when you're looking at a team like the Warriors that are a bunch of hobbits, they are a tiny team. You cannot win when you're that small. Even the Warriors championship teams were not this small. They had size. So when you have a player like Cam Whitmore sitting there and you're telling me that Coach Kerr cannot coach him to fit into the system, that frustrates me because you need size. He's a player who would give you size. He has tenacity. He does have a motor. And the Warriors just passed up on him to take a player that probably would have been available 5 to 10 spaces further down. Maybe they couldn't trade down. I don't know. But a lot of other teams were trading down and making deals. And that's the part that frustrated me, is for them to use the 19th pick, same way as last year. I mean, people were shocked that they used 28 on Patrick Baldwin Jr., a player who probably would have been available at like 45. And a huge part of me wonders if that's what happened this year. And if that is what happened, that's a failure, man. That is a mistake you made. You could have traded down and got him more assets, got him better assets, got in size, which this team still needs. I don't care who Chris Paul is, man. If you don't get bigger, you're not a contender. And that's the part that frustrated me. So I'm with you there, Baller.
Well, let's say this, though. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, first of all, you got to have a trading partner. So, I mean, they found one with Washington. I don't know if they had one that quick to move down. So that's one thing, because I agree. I mean, Podziemski, I evaluated him, did a deep dive on him, and he was 25 to 30. I think he's a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But, yo, man, listen, we can do this anytime. We put his tape on and put his tape against Ben Shepherd. Ben Shepherd has a better tape, a much better tape. All right? Now, Bill Duffy is a power agent. Power agents have influence and relationships with organizations, and I would agree. I think once the Warriors were solid on Podziemski, nothing else was going to matter, even though it should matter because Cam is now available. And I just think that guy's going to be a steal. But the totality of how this business works was on display this afternoon. I believe Duff got his guy in the top 20, and that's why he was drafted at 19. He's not good. He's good.
I think what happened in this draft for the Warriors is exactly what I expected to happen based on the pre-draft rhetoric. When Dunleavy was asked, what are you looking for in the draft? We want guys who know how to play basketball. And so to me, what I heard from that is, if we're on the board and all of a sudden there's somebody with athletic traits with, who's a highlight reel guy. I mean, I think Whitmore may win an NBA dunk contest. He's that kind of an athlete. But we're going to go with the skill over the flash. And then they did it. You know what I mean? They went with a guy that they thought was more skilled. It is interesting, JD. What number did you say they had? They said that Podziemski was
around
top
11.
So
Dunleavy said around 11 was how they had him rated.
They really obviously liked him. I wanted to ask you guys about Jonathan Kuminga
too, Frank. At that point,
oh yeah, I mean we all did. We talked about it.
Tell me what Shepherd does better than Brandin.
Okay, he positions himself for shots. All right. Podziemski, most of the time when he's shooting, the ball is in his hands. He assesses the defense and then he'll go. Or he'll catch it beyond the defense and he'll lift it up from about 28. He has incredible range. But Ben Shepherd, if you watch his tape, He looks like Klay Thompson at Washington State. He really, off down screens, he has one dribble moves right. He can elevate. Watch his tape. This dude is a baller.
I've seen the kid, Red.
What do you think?
He's a good young piece.
I'll tell you what he does better. He plays
I don't
defense
necessarily
better.
see him as a better player because I don't think he has a high basketball.
No. I said his tape was better.
Yeah, well, tape is better. How? He didn't average more points. He didn't rebound the ball better. He didn't shoot the ball better from the floor or from three.
Foss, I watched Podziemski. Listen, I just saw Podziemski's tape. I didn't see him rebound anything.
He averaged 9 rebounds a game.
Yes, he did, but it's not on the tape.
Come on.
Foss is not on the tape.
Okay.
I watched it.
Then it must be some hidden tape.
Yo, I watched the tape. I did the pre-draft work on this kid.
And they're different, though. Let's be honest. They're different in a lot of ways.
Yes, they are. They are very different.
I think the kid from Belmont, first of all, they both played at kind of a lower level of competition. Shepherd, what I liked about him is that he, as Red said, he's a little bit more like Klay Thompson's size. He's more of a 6'6" guy. Now, Klay Thompson, much better passer, I thought, even at Wazoo than this guy has demonstrated. But this guy's hit some big shots. I think he stays in front of people on the defensive end. This guy can actually play defense. I think the other guy the guy they drafted is going to be challenged on defense and maybe picked on at times on defense. And also I think there's no question in my mind that Shepherd can guard more positions. He could guard 1s, 2s, and 3s. And I think Podziemski is a guy who could probably guard 2s and maybe not even do a great job. And I don't think he can stay in front of 1s, and I don't think he's big enough to handle 3s. So I think he's not nearly as versatile of a defender. I also think
seems like
that
a specialist to me. He seems like a guy who he's going to knock down the 3. He can get into the lane with the floater game, and he's going to keep the ball, and he's going to hustle. Not really be good at it at anything or exceptional, but he's gonna hustle, and he's kind of hard nosed, and he's confident. And also,
the Belmont kid's got a quick trigger. If you watch his release, he's got a high release and a quick release, and Podziemski's got a lower release and a slower release.
Yeah, and again, I'm not even really making the case necessarily that it was the right pick. I just think they viewed it more as, now it's scary when you say top 11, because I think that's a little bit more of, when you come out and you say that, then there's added incentive for the kid to be pretty good and be better than some of these other players that we're talking about that weren't selected or went later on. But I view him as they look at the rest of their roster, and even now after they got Chris Paul, and they say, hey, we need some shooting. He can get into the lane a little bit. He'll keep it moving on offense. We're not going to worry about the fact that he can't defend, because he's going to be a specialist. And in these specified roles, he can be an effective player, but we're not going to play him so much that him getting picked on is really going to matter all that much. Now, again, I'm making the case. I don't even know that's not necessarily my take. I'm just trying to get inside their head a little bit. The one thing I did see, guys, because it came up as far as who wanted to move down, and maybe you guys have talked about this, but I did read a report that Houston, who ended up with Whitmore at 20, called the Lakers, called the Heat, called the Warriors, who were 17, 18, 19 in order. But Houston wouldn't tell those teams who they wanted to move up for, and so there was no traction. So it was reported that they at least called, but again, that's moving from 19 to 20. What are you going to get for that? At that point, it's not much in terms of a difference. But I did see that Houston was calling to move up because they felt that highly on Whitmore, who I think is kind of perfect for them considering where they are. I'll give you a 5-second take on Whitmore for the Warriors as he slipped, and the talent is undeniable. But with the injury concerns, and I had read the same thing, Cy, you did, the injury concerns and the draft workout, I just looked at Cam Whitmore and I thought he won't play for the Warriors this year. He just won't play. And so they've already got Kuminga, who's 2 years ahead of him, and they're
pretty loaded at the 3.
That it looks like they are. I think Kuminga is more likely to still be on the team now that they've made the Jordan Poole move. But I looked at it as, well, Cam Whitmore is definitely not going to play a lot for this team, and there's injury concerns, so they weren't going to entertain that. And I also wonder, how much homework they did on him, because
Right, because they didn't think he was going to be staring at him.
there. So I think that's also a fair question. Did they do the homework on him to even be prepared to consider it once he fell in their lap?
Yeah, that's a great
question.
Is Podziemski going to play this year? Is that the premise you're presenting? Like Podziemski is someone that's going to see real minutes this couple?
He better.
I think he definitely will.
He better. Like it's if you said that he's top 11 and you're touting the fact that you took him because he has this skill set, and you're a team that's on record saying you want more players that can play now compared to the last few years of draft picks.
They need him.
Then he better. And if he doesn't, then there should be an energy attached to how they're criticized for taking him.
One other point that I think has to be made between Shepard and Podziemski is that Shepard. I mean, and I watch both these guys a lot because I zoned in on a couple of these guys, and these two guys were two of the guys that I kind of liked. Podziemski has the problem that the Warriors have right now, which is defending without fouling. And that's something that the Belmont kid, I think, does much better. He can defend and bother the offensive players without fouling as much. Now, granted, he's playing at Belmont. It's a much lower level. He's not playing in the ACC, but the other kid's playing at Santa Clara. I'm just saying I saw the Belmont kid defend better without fouling. If you look at his numbers, it shows that. Jonathan Kuminga was not dealt. There was a lot of talk today that the Pacers wanted him, and there was some speculation. I know I speculated in the middle of the day with Red and Baller about would Kuminga get moved, and I thought there was a very good chance that maybe he would get moved for a lottery pick, and they would draft like a Hawkins or a Grady Dick. It didn't happen. I'm not totally distraught about it because I think Kuminga's got huge upside, and I'd be way more worried to trade him than Jordan Poole. So I'm not disappointed that they didn't move him. But what is your guys' feeling now that we've seen these other additions about Kuminga's tenure on the team? Do you expect him to be on this team? Is he going to get moved in a trade later this summer? Let's go around the room on Kuminga. How do you see Kuminga? We know how it didn't work for him last year. Do you see him getting to a different level and being part of the rotation? And is there going to be big-time growth? They're going to give him another shot? Or we just didn't see him traded tonight, but we're going to see him traded in the weeks ahead? What do you guys think?
I think CP3 is going to help him a lot because CP3 the Warriors are going to have to adjust the offense a little bit when he's playing because CP3 is a pick and roll guy. And I think he is going to look at Kuminga and see lob opportunities, like JD said earlier, and it's going to raise his profile, man. I mean, I'm happy they didn't trade him because CP3, I think, is just, particularly in the half court, he's a better half court passer than anybody the Warriors have on their team, including Draymond Green. So I think CP3 is going to really help Jonathan Kuminga.
I think the Warriors view Jonathan Kuminga as virtually untouchable. I only think they would have even considered trading Jonathan Kuminga if they were getting a star, kind of packaging him with Jordan Poole. But that wasn't the case. That tells me that Jonathan Kuminga, he's here to stay. And not only that, I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think he's going to take a huge step forward here in year 3. He averaged 10 points a game last year. I wouldn't be surprised if that jumps up to 16 points per game. And we see, the efficiency looking at it was really good last year. I mean, he shot 53% from the field, 37% from distance. I think I'm expecting a big step from JK, and I don't think what gets talked about enough is he's a competent passer. I think he is a good passer. I want to see a little more focus defensively. I want to see a little more effort on the glass, but he's flashed that stuff. But give him more minutes in the regular season. I really think he's going to put it together, and I'm expecting a big leap from Jonathan Kuminga.
I think there's no player that benefits more from Chris Paul being on the Golden State Warriors than Jonathan Kuminga. I think if he's in that second unit with Chris Paul, I think what Jonathan Kuminga needs to be in the Warriors' eyes, a more productive and efficient player, is he has to get offense from others and not be so of the belief that he has to get his offense on his own. And I think Chris Paul is one of the best players in the history of the game at getting offense for others, at setting dudes up in the right spot. And so I think the Chris Paul trade, I echo what Frank said and double down on what I said earlier. I think that really helps Kuminga. I also don't think now that there really is a trade to be made with his salary slot that fits the type of player you would want back in it. So if you let's say you want to re-examine the OG Anunoby thing, well, the Warriors don't really have anybody else that they could put.
What about GP3?
That's interesting.
That's probably the one guy. That's probably the one guy you could maybe couple with him. Not that I want to move JK, but
no, but you're right. That would be like 6 and 9, and that would get you into that because I think Anunoby's 17 million. So you get close enough to that point. But is that the other thing that I wondered and was, and this goes back to Podziemski, but I'll just wrap this up on Kuminga first. I think I still wonder as I look at the depth chart as it stands right now, if it's a lot, like how are they going to find minutes for him? Where are they going to find minutes for him? Because if you look at their go-tos, as far as they don't view him as a 3, okay? They view him as a 4. They view GP2 as a 4. I think Jackson Davis is going to be a 5, and maybe he isn't playing a lot, but is he going to be Draymond Green's backup? And that's going to be his guaranteed 18 minutes that maybe gets extended beyond that if, depending on different lineup combinations. Are they going to commit to that? Or are they still going to be playing GP2 as the backup 4? Like there's something in the combinations that they have to figure out as to, is there a 3-man that they can put out there with Kuminga that allows them to play Kuminga more? And I don't know that player is on the roster right now. Like I don't think Moody and Kuminga as a 3-4 combo is, I don't think that fits the way that they've been comfortable playing Kuminga in the past. And so I know I'm getting in the weeds a little bit with that, and I'm not even making the case like he shouldn't play at all. I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves on the way that they've handled it and saying, all right, how does it fit? Because now maybe there's a shift. Maybe they start to view him more as a backup 3, which is something that he views, or he's a backup 3 and a backup 4, which is we've talked about. I think that's who he believes he is. I think he believes he's more of a 3 and wants to be more of a 3 than a 4. But do they clear space in their rotation for that? Does he evolve to a point where they trust him in that role? Just a question. I also wondered with Podziemski, did they make that pick for and maybe not because Dunleavy said they had him, top 11, but did they make that pick for somebody else? Or is there a deal out there that maybe they want to explore at some point that could involve Kuminga for a veteran, but there was somebody else that liked Podziemski and they wanted to make sure they had him because they want to come back and reevaluate this other deal that might involve multiple players for somebody that they know can be a part of their rotation. I think you can't totally rule that out either among the things that they're trying to do. And let's be honest, Mike Dunleavy, and we all knew it was not real, but Mike Dunleavy said a week ago, Jordan Poole, hey, we want him for another 4 years. So for
I think he just misspoke. He meant 4 days.
And we all knew it was bullshit.
Right. I mean, does he think it was stupid? I mean, come on. Oh yeah. No. This is what he said. He said at least 4 years.
Well, yeah,
right. At least 4 years.
At least 4. I'm like, can I choke you through the television screen?
I know.
Hey, he had me fooled. I was nervous. I thought they were planning just running it back, tweaking some things on the back end. So at least I'm happy I was wrong about that.
Yeah, and I don't mean to get in the weeds on the Kuminga thing. And again, I tend to try to think of a million different angles as far as, is there something bigger at play here? Because the Podziemski deal is like that. I mean, that's it sounds like we all agree that's a bit of a stretch. That's a little bit of a stretch, or maybe 4 of the 5 of us here agree. I guess Carl maybe likes Podziemski more than the rest of us do.
I like
But-
the 25. 25 to 30.
Well, hey, let's look at the depth chart real quick. So you got at the 5, you go Looney, Jackson Davis, right?
Yep.
Right now, yeah.
At the
And
4,
they're gonna sign a vet minimum guy, I think, to be in that mix as well.
okay, at the 4, you've got Green and Kuminga,
Yep.
right? Who's the other
Yeah.
4? Isn't there one more 4 there?
GP. I mean, GP
Well,
on offense is the 4.
I heard you say that a minute ago, but I mean, I think of GP as a kind of almost a positionless player.
He plays the 4 on offense and he plays the 1 on defense.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's like a defensive stopper on anybody who wants to be on. He's an on the ball shutdown suffocator on defense. On offense, he's kind of a finisher in the lane, almost like a lob threat. So what position would you slate him in as?
I go with the way where they play him. They play. If you look at who else is on the floor when Peyton's on the floor, he's the 4 most of the time.
Okay, so then at
In the
3
playoffs,
you
he
go
was, for sure.
Wiggins and Moody, right?
Yeah,
And who else do they have at 3?
That's it.
Is that
that's
it?
it.
And then at the 2, it's Clay. And then
And
you don't have
Rookie.
and you don't have
Podziemski.
Poole.
And Podziemski, yeah.
And then you got Curry and CP3.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's basically an 11-man team right there, and you got a few extra spots for whatever veterans. Let me ask you this: are they title contenders? And if not, what do they need still to not necessarily be the favorite, because they're not going to be the favorite, but what do they have to do to be, in your guys' minds, legitimate title contenders? Not hey, rah Warriors, they have no shot, but we're just going to make it up. What do they actually need piece-wise to vault from where they're at today to legitimate title contenders? What do you guys think?
I want a big guy. Oh, go ahead,
They
Carl.
need another long, athletic, active player, somebody above 6'8", who can be in their mix up front, who has veteran capacity, but he can come at the right price. And they need their chemistry to be 100% on point. I think the biggest challenge with the Warriors is trying to create this positional piece on a piece of paper, as opposed to the positions where they're going to play and which guys fit as quintets together, because GP2 does not fit with every piece where he has to be a 4, because you have to have certain types of players that he can play with. So taking Poole out of the equation changes that dynamic tremendously, because Chris Paul will run a second unit and even sometime a couple of the starters with maybe a fill-in guy from the second unit differently than it'll be if you don't have Chris Paul on the floor. So I think in essence, they're going to end up with a secondary offensive set that they run, that Chris Paul runs some pick and roll out of, which is why Kuminga is going to look better.
What about
What about Jerome and Lamb and Quinones and those guys? Are they just
Get him out of here.
You don't
Get him out
want
of
to.
here.
I'm not a huge fan of any of those guys. But do you see any of those guys back, or do you see? I mean, because right now we're talking about a team that has 11 players. Jermichael Green's a free agent; he's gone. Iguodala's a free agent; he's gone. If Quinones and Jerome and Lamb are gone, Rollins was traded, Baldwin was traded, so Poole was traded. DiVincenzo's gone. Is the rest of the roster made up of what? Defensive
3 veteran minimum players.
They
have 3 veteran minimum players they need to sign. I think one of them's a big. I think one of them is another. Ideally, one of them would be, I think, a big man that can bang with other true bigs. Not going to play every night, but somebody that, if there's somebody that's athletic and has some legitimate size on a given night, you can throw him out there for a few minutes just to kind of clog the game up, change the complexion of the game. I think that's one of them. I think the other one they would love to have is a stretch 4. I think they'd love to have somebody that can shoot the ball from a forward position. And I think the other one has got to be a 2-3 defender that they can throw. Think of him as Moses Moody insurance.
Terrence Ross or something like that.
Yeah, Terrence Ross is a scorer. Terrence Ross is a go-get-it scorer. I don't see a Terrence Ross.
A Matisse Thybulle type.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Thybulle Thybulle is a great type. Among the bigs,
Alex Lynn, although Sack's probably going to re-sign him.
Who's that?
Alex Lynn.
Alex Lynn. I know. I always say Alex Lynn. Alex Lynn's, but yeah, it's an Alex.
I've been
Lynn
trying
type.
to get Robin Lopez here for the last like 3
He's
years.
retired, man. How
Without
about
announcing
somebody who's about to get married and Frank Kaminsky?
You know the marital plans of Frank Kaminsky. You're very on top of the league. As Gary would say, that's good knowledge. That's good knowledge.
He ended up in.
I'm a Kaminsky fan, man. I've been a Kaminsky fan. I've been suggesting Kaminsky for years, and people are like, "Are you related to Kaminsky?" I'm like, "No, I just kind of like Kaminsky. I think Kaminsky's got a high basketball IQ, so I do like Kaminsky on this team because Kerr likes high basketball IQ guys.
He'd be great. He's smart. You know, he can play offense. Yeah, he'd be great.
What's the big kid who used to be in Iowa?
Brian Cardinal?
No.
Oh, no. The custodian?
He was National Player of the Year.
Luka Garza?
Yeah. That type of body guy that, like you said, he maybe plays 2.5 out of every 4 games. He might see some minutes.
What about Kevin Love? What about Kevin Love?
Kevin Love, yeah.
That's more money for Kevin. I love Kevin Love, but I think there's more money out there for him.
Yeah.
But now that the Warriors have CP3, it makes you wonder if there's some of these guys that are true ring chasers will look at them as all in this year on the title and maybe would want to join up.
Miles Leonard.
I don't have a problem with that.
He video game streamed and got a little crazy. The Canthi Kid donates. He says, "Thanks, Larry, for all the awesome content and coverage today. We appreciate your time and effort, brother. Appreciate you. Absolutely." And we get a couple more of these. We got this one from Degenerate Daddy. He says, "With the addition of Chris Paul, ? We see him starting. Dre, Wiggs, Clay, Steph, and Paul starting. Hall of Famer off the bench. Paul play the Iggy role." I don't see that. What do you guys?
He's not starting.
Not starting.
I think he has to come off the bench, and they have to have that conversation quickly. Hopefully, they've already had it today. Hey, you're going to be able to finish games. Mm-hmm. Steph missed 26 last year. Take care of your body, and we'll take care of your body, and you'll get some starts there. Clay, Clay may miss some back-to-backs here and there. Mm-hmm. You're going to get some starts. But we want to win a championship, and the best way to win a championship is for you to be a sixth man and the best backup point guard in the NBA, which I think is a great role for Chris Paul at this stage of his career. And he's getting $30+ million to do it, so he should be pretty comfortable with it because he wasn't going to get that a day ago the way things were looking.
Brian Gavin throws $5. He says, "Thanks, gents, for the analysis and the enthusiasm. Regardless of how the new players turn out, we can smile in the short term knowing Poole is gone." I'm not a big Poole fan, but I know there's probably people that are Poole fans. This is not a super chat, but kind of an interesting comment. Joe Lee, because of CP3, I'd like the Warriors to sign Montrezl Harrell.
I like that pickup too, just because Montrezl has to want to show people I'm not a bum. I can actually play, and he knows how to play with CP3. The challenge would be for him, as Red would say, what happens when he's on the floor when he can't set a pick and roll screen? He'll have no idea where else to go.
Plus, he kind of looks at himself in a brighter light than everybody else does. And that can be problematic, man.
Where's he been? Where's he been the last couple of years?
He was on Philly. He was on Philly last year.
He just opted out because he wanted to leave.
Yeah.
He fell off the map.
Well, he wants to play.
He plays hard, but he wants to play in 1993. The game is a lot different now. So I would love to have him on the team if he could just accept his role and say, hey, I'm going to go in and rebound for a couple of minutes and then go sit down. But if he wants to play like 25 minutes, I mean, he's not as good a player as Jackson Davis.
Jesus is saying, Larry, do you think the Warriors would have drafted Jaime Jaquez if he had fallen? He went to the Heat.
I love him.
What did you think of Jaquez at UCLA? What do you think if Jaquez had fallen one more spot to the Warriors, would they have jumped him?
No.
I don't think so.
The difference isn't he's
not
very
if they
similar.
had Podziemski
at number 11.
And
every coach says that. Every GM
JD.
says that. John Lynch said they got Reuben Foster
but
at pick 31, but
honestly,
they were thinking about taking him at 3.
You don't have to
but
say
they
we
do.
had a top
No,
11.
you don't.
They
but
do.
when you're a little bit, when you're learning your craft, maybe you didn't have all your buttons all the way up to the top. But here would be the question about Jaime as opposed to Brandin. Jaime is really a guy that you want to give him the ball and let him kind of do his thing in a second unit environment when he gets in, because he's going to become a productive scorer. Mm-hmm. He just knows how to play. He's really smart. I think he landed in a beautiful place going to Miami and having Latin descent. I mean, he's absolutely going to be a cult hero. But is he a guy that's going to feel comfortable when they're telling him to go set 4 off-ball screens and you're not rolling to the basket to get a mid-range post up? You know, that's what he's going to like. So I still think they would have took Brandin over him, but I love Jaime personally.
And in Miami, if he doesn't do what they want him to do, they'll be like, all right, well, you're not playing for the next 3 months.
Yep.
What do you think of this one? This is kind of an interesting one here. Mark Lopez, Larry, I hate to say it, but this is the end. Warriors are the Cowboys of the NBA. The owner wants to be the GM, the coach, the water boy. Really disappointed in today's moves. We've managed to get smaller and older. Shaking my head.
I want fans to explain themselves. A lot of people in the chat, they make statements, but they don't explain themselves. I mean, please explain yourself, because it's okay to have an opinion, but explain your thesis. We don't get enough of that, because I disagree with this.
Hey, Red, that means they have to know what a thesis is.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I do understand what he's saying here, but I think you got to give it a little bit more. You got to breathe a little bit more on this, and this offseason's not over. You got to give it a little bit more time. On a more of a macro view, 4-Ace Windu says Kings wanted the Murray twins, but the Blazers shit on that, and the Kings settled for cap space. I thought the Kings, the guy they drafted was wearing Kings colors. He had a purple suit. They went with Omax Prosper, and then they moved him to Dallas. I would have liked Omax Prosper if I was Sacramento, and then to move Rashawn Holmes as well. And then somebody was speculating that the Kings are clearing cap room for a big run at Draymond. There's no chance of that, is there?
Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, they're more likely to get Dylan than Dre.
Yeah.
But what I will say is what Dallas did today and what they've done so far opens up a door for JaVale McGee maybe to ask somebody to buy him out or something.
Well, that would be the piece, and I suggested to Frank and to Baller this afternoon that if they were going to move Kuminga, they get the lottery pick from Dallas at 10 and take JaVale McGee, because I think McGee does make a lot of sense for the Warriors, and his contract matched up with Kuminga's. I didn't love that idea, but to me, I could see McGee as being attractive to them. What do you guys think of McGee adding that body to the mix up front? I mean, you already have Looney, who's a 5, Green, who's a 5, Kuminga, who might be a 5, Trayce Jackson-Davis, who might be a 5, is getting. Do you need more of a shooter in that big, or do you need more of a rim protector, a bigger body like a McGee, or is McGee a redundant part at this point?
I like Jacques
I think
Landale
they
better.
need 2 guys. I like McGee. I want a big guy, someone who can defend the rim, a shot blocker. So I do like McGee, but I also like what JD was saying. I think they need some kind of stretch forward. They need some additional shooting in that front court, someone who can stretch it, kind of give him a different look, kind of what Otto Porter was bringing to the table. But yeah, I'd be interested in McGee, and I'm going to jump here. So I appreciate you guys. Larry, thanks for having me on. I love talking ball with you guys, and we were given some comps on Podziemski earlier, not to change the subject, but the comp that came to mind when I was watching Podziemski is, like Carl was saying, I'm going international. Goran Dragic, the lefty. That's who kind of was coming to mind just with his savviness and kind of his skill level. So I'm going to listen to your thoughts, but I'm going to jump here. Hey, chat was live. Hey, if you guys have time, check out my channel. I put my thoughts out there earlier on the CP3 trade and the Podziemski pick. Bay Area Baller 18, one word, subscribe. Hey, fellas, I'm going to listen backstage to what you guys got to say. But, hey, thanks for having me on, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right,
Baller,
brother.
thanks for your time, brother. Have a good one.
Herb Sendek.
Carl, you got to jump?
No, I was just waving at.
Okay.
Baller.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I was planning on going, 15, 20 more minutes if that's cool with you guys, and then call it a night. I don't know how you guys feel your time wise, but it's 11. But I don't want to go to midnight. But I figure let's go another 15 minutes or so. How's that sit with you guys? Is that good?
Sounds good.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Me and Red are going to be up till 1 in the morning arguing anyway.
I love it.
JD,
This is
you
what-
said about
hey,
her- Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no,
everybody-
we had
Go
Herb
ahead.
Sendek on, and I was surprised he did it. We did ask him the comp question, and a lot of coaches don't like doing that. But we asked him, and Goran Dragic was the name that he mentioned.
That's interesting.
That he compared Podziemski to. So
That's who
obviously
I do.
he coached him. So yeah, just a little add on to that there based on what he said.
What did you guys think overall as far a couple more on the before we get that. We go this is an interesting. Kelt says we need a Jared Allen type. I think he's too good for what they is Jared Allen. They're not getting Jared Allen.
He's the
right?
type, but he's too good. He's a $20 million
expensive.
player.
He's a $100 million contract.
Yeah, you're not getting him.
Yeah, he's making 20 something a year.
Amar Singh says they need to get 2 or 3 of these guys: Dylan Brooks, Dario Saric, Jonathan Isaac, Yuta Watanabe. Isaac makes $17 million. Put a line through him. Brooks is a free agent, but he'll be coveted and will be paid far beyond what the Warriors can afford. Saric, what do you think of Saric? That's of these 4 that he threw out, the only one that I think is even interesting is Saric.
And that's because he can kind of create his own offense. He's rather sluggish when he moves around, but he's crafty enough to figure out some things. I don't know how he would fit defensively because he's kind of a sieve, but he'd be an interesting guy to have on your roster.
How about Rip Krueger Rebel throwing a line that Red threw out a couple weeks ago? I believe it was Red. What about the center from UConn, Adama Sanogo, as an undrafted option?
Somebody signed him tonight. Somebody signed him within the last hour, and I'm trying to remember who
Was it the Warriors or was it the Warriors?
I think it might have been G League Ignite.
Yeah, nah, he's bullshit.
It was, I'm going to find out who it was as we're talking here. So I'll get that in just a second.
Maybe the Wisconsin Red Devils.
Here's
Probably
one.
was the Clippers, but
Mark Graves says, is Amani Bates going to be any good?
Chicago signed him. Yeah,
I can see him. Almost looks like it. I can picture almost Elton Brand. He's even looks like a little bit like an Elton Brand, like 6'8", real thick chest, barrel chested. Amani Bates. A lot of people don't. Amani Bates, had a gun charge, and there were some off-court issues. But man, the guy definitely has. I understand the people that say he's not a great athlete and he's kind of high cut and blah 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 blah. But he's also a 6'10" guy with crazy confidence. And he went to the Cavs at 49, 19th pick of the second round. He had some big scoring nights for Eastern Michigan. This guy's been on everybody's radar since he was 8th, 9th grade or something like that. This guy's he's well known in the youth circles. What do you guys think of Amani Bates as an NBA player?
He's talented. He's actually good enough to play in the NBA. But it makes me, I don't know, it frustrates me when you look at some players and for whatever reason, they either get bad advice, they don't see the big picture. You know, like if this guy was in a different environment, I mean, let's do it over and take him, and he's 10 years old now. You know what he would be? He would be the Thompson twins. He'd be one of those kids. All right. I mean, even with their tape at Overtime Elite, and it looks like a very advanced AAU game, right? But the interviews that those kids did, unbelievable interviews. They're so elegant. They're so intelligent. Mom and dad are intellects. You know, okay, yeah, I'll risk $10 million on these guys. But Amani Bates, when you see him, you know, perceptionally, people draw conclusions that may or may not be right. And it costs him millions of dollars. Some of it was on his own volition, the gun charge. You can't walk around with a gun. You can't do that. So I'm frustrated because I think this could be a hit or miss. He could go to Cleveland and work his way up, or he could be in Istanbul in 2 years, man.
Well, he's going to be in the G League. He's going to need that time to really mature, develop the work habits of a pro, begin to understand the game is more than just a gunner. I mean, there was another great guy who was really long, really lean, who went to Eastern Michigan. Some of you guys aren't old enough to remember him. He's world-renowned, as known as the Iceman, who started off in basically the G League playing in the ABA and worked his way up. He found a way to become an outstanding player who had a little bit of baggage on him when he came a pro at 19. I'm rooting for Imani. I've known of Imani since he was probably 9 years old. His story, I don't want to see it have a tragic ending where he never becomes a productive NBA player, but it's going to be tough because he's got a lot he's got to learn. He's got to really learn how to play. You know, the one thing that's coming out now that you see is that the teams that are going to be super successful, the guys are all super committed to what the larger group wants. And if you're not committed to that, if you're not willing to be a part of a culture, you're probably going to become a well-paid mercenary, but you're not going to become a champion. And we need more guys that are younger thinking about, I know I want to get paid. We all know that. But they should also want to become historic basketball players that are part of something that really matters.
The couple observations from you guys before we get out of here on the other teams in the draft and just your takeaways for the night. Man, there was that Grady Dick suit jacket was god awful. I mean, that thing was just brutal. The other thing I really loved was I loved that, you know, I didn't follow Duke that much this year. I don't like watching Duke. If there's other games on besides Duke, I'll watch them over Duke. I don't care if it's WCC. I don't care if it's Mountain West. I don't care if it's Nevada, Utah State. I'd rather watch them than Duke. I don't like watching Duke. But that means I didn't watch a lot of the 7-footer lively. But, man, I love that kid's story. The thing that I love the most was that he gave his NIL money to the walk-ons and that's freaking awesome. I mean, that's that guy. I mean, that right there. I know there was a lot of talk the Warriors really liked him. I was just so moved by that. Just the who that kid is. I thought that was amazing. Actually, I'm rooting for him for sure. But did you guys have no, maybe it was Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker gave his NIL money to walk-on teammates at Houston. That's what it was.
Lively bought his mom a house.
Yeah, Lively bought his mom a house. Yeah. And I'll tell you the other thing I liked. I loved when Juwan Howard and his lovely wife were sitting there with their kid Jet, and Juwan said, listening is a skill. And that is such a great message for young people. And I just think, I don't know how good Jet is. He went to Orlando at 11, but I can see why Juwan's had the success he's had at Michigan as a coach. And it's the kind of thing that if I had a high school kid and he was trying to decide between Michigan and another school, I like that message. I really do. So that kind of stood out to me. I also say this. I really thought that the kid, I love the poise of of the guy who went number 2 in the draft. Who was the guy who went 2?
Brandon Miller.
Yeah, Brandon Miller. I mean, obviously he can shoot the hell out of it, and Mitch Kupchak got a hell of a player there. But he had a sharp gray and red plaid suit. But I just love the poise. He's sitting there, and he's just very poised. You could see he came from good stock. His mom and dad were, very, very good people. He seemed like a really good guy. I was very impressed by the top 3 guys. Victor. By the way, somebody gambled $300,000 that Victor Wembanyama would go number 1 to make $300. I mean, I know it was a lock, but I mean, my God, you're going to risk $300,000 to make $300, and that almost seems ridiculous. But Scoot Henderson, I really liked Scoot Henderson in the interview that he did with the former Warrior Jamal Crawford, and I really liked his mindset where he's like, man, I'm going to work, and I want to be part of the community. I think Scoot and Brandon Miller and Victor at the top of the draft, not to mention the Thompson twins, but I love the top 3 picks, not just their talent, but kind of like their character.
Well, hey, with Scoot, one of the things that's going to come out, it came out publicly, I want to say about a week or so ago. He's going to be working with Steph Curry in a kind of a mentorship capacity. Clearly, he's a very unique young man. He wants to have a tremendous impact on the world that he's going to be invested in. Clearly, his family is super dedicated, and they're all together. I love the commercial he had, I think, with his sister, where they were doing what was it for the
AT&T
telephone company. The one thing that was interesting, he was so dynamically flashy tonight. He wanted to let people know,
I know.
Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to party.
With the gems in the suit.
That says he has a tremendous amount of confidence, because all the other times you hear him, he's very understated. So he had a chance to celebrate himself, and I think that was a good opportunity for him tonight. The guy that I was really impressed with, though, and I'm impressed with as a basketball player, who I think is going to have a huge impact as a player, is Anthony Black. Anthony Black reminds me of Giddey, and I am giddy over Giddey. I love guys who are sharers, who are givers, who are all about the group, and I think he's going to have a chance to be a really good player. It's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to do, because between the 3 young guards that they've taken, who are all basically, I need the ball in my hands, it's going to be very interesting to see which one of those guys goes. And it looks like it's probably going to be Jalen Suggs. It's probably going to end up leaving first, because the Anthony kid, Cole Anthony, looks like he's established a role. But the kid Anthony Black just looks like he could be a great lead guard.
Yeah, there were 2 teams. I love what Charlotte did. And although I think, Scoot would have been my pick, but I don't think you can lose with either one of those guys. And they got Nick Smith at 27. I think he is a really, really talented kid who, he
seems really crushed, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And I think he did because, he was a top 5 player coming out of high school. He was so for him to go 27th and not even, and potentially be out of the first round, I think was a real tough blow for him. But I want to see how he responds, because he's really talented. And I thought San Antonio, notwithstanding Victor, did very well. They got the guy that I love. They got Leonard Miller at 33.
Did they keep him? Because I don't see him on here, but they also got Sidi Sissoko, the guy that I love from France. They got Victor, Leonard Miller, and Sissoko. I mean, that's 3 really nice prospects.
Yeah, Miller got traded to
Minnesota. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minnesota.
Okay.
Here's a question for JD and for Frank. You're the new GM or the new leadership group that's in Portland. You take Scoot. What happens to Dame?
Go ahead, JD.
I love Scoot. I mean, at this point, the guy that I'd be looking to move is Simons in the short term, because I think he's a backup guard. I think Portland has been trying a little too hard to cobble it together these last couple of years after their window ended, with some of the, with the McCollum era. Basically, their window ended in 2019 when they lost to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. And they've tried to piece it together since. And I give Dame credit for his loyalty. I think he's given them, beyond what maybe any other star would have given them to try to get over the hump. And they had a lot of success there. They were in the playoffs every single year. They would win around one year. They wouldn't another year. I think it's probably time for them to go to Dame and say, it's cool, man. Like, we'll try to do a deal. We're going to build around Scoot. And, we'll get you to Miami. We'll get you somewhere where you can win a title, and hopefully you do. And we'll be happy for you. And we'll welcome you back the day you retire and retire the letter O, in the rafters for being just a Hall of Fame person in addition to a great player. And so, I don't know. I love Damian Lillard. He's one of my favorite players in the league and has been from the time he stepped on the floor. I just love it. I love his game. But I think it's time for them to rip the Band-Aid off and do it in the most appropriate manner and respectful manner. And I don't know. It seems like even now Dame's probably not happy with the way things have transpired, but there still is a certain level of loyalty that he feels, which I think is admirable and
he's a very loyal guy.
He's
a very loyal guy. Yeah.
And so I think they have to go to him and say, look, Dame, it's good. It's okay. We're good. No heart. Like, this is going to end as well as any superstar in a small market that it was time to move on can possibly end. There's going to be no Kevin Durant where you get booed, mercilessly, and there's no tribute video and people are throwing shit and hollering obscenities at, like, none of that's happening. Calling you a traitor and all this, and worse, I'm sure. So I think, I know I'm giving you the long-winded answer. Frank, I'll let you jump in, but I think Scoot is a franchise caliber talent. And so I think that's probably the move. I'd probably look to move Simons too. At this point,
he's got a big contract,
and Jeremy Grant and all those guys like that, like it didn't work. I think they've got some pieces that other teams would want as role players that they're kind of building around. And I think they need to redo the thing with Dame and Grant and Simons. And I actually think they could maybe rebuild it pretty quickly because they do have assets that help other teams. So go for it, Frank. I took some of your time there, my man.
It's all good, brother. Yeah, you know what? I think that Miami is the number one destination, and maybe Brooklyn. I would have a conversation with Dame, a real conversation, and then based on what he says, it would be over. If he said that he really wanted to be there, then I might consider riding it out. But Dame's a smart guy. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense when the franchise who loves you tells you that they don't want you. They want you to chase a championship, and you go, no, I want to stay. But I understand geography. He's close to the Bay in Portland. It probably has a lot of business things going on. Miami's a whole different culture. You really don't know. It sounds good, but you're not there yet. Brooklyn is 3,000 miles away. So maybe Portland has to take the onus to do it. Miami has some pieces. They have even more pieces now that they got Jaime. Tyler Hero would be one of those people who I think they would ship off to Portland because of his contract. And from Portland's standpoint, you know what? They got two rock solid potential stars already in Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot.
Yes.
So, Tyler Hero will be the third best player, I think, ultimately. So you're right. They could rebuild it to respectability relatively fast. So yeah, maybe Dame to the Clippers or something like that. If they want to move off of a Paul George, then maybe that's the answer, something like that. But it's time for Dame to go. It's time for Dame to go.
Couple last thoughts before we get out of here. One, I think the big winner, I might say Portland. You get Scoot, you get Chris Murray, and you get that kid Rupert in the second round from France.
Yeah.
That's not a bad little haul right there.
Murray's
I
good.
kind of like that.
I like
And-
Houston and Oklahoma City, just to kind of throw those two. I thought Houston had a really good night tonight.
did.
Obviously, they got Whitmore who fell to them at 20 as they were trying to move up, and
Amen Thompson.
Yeah, exactly, and Amen Thompson as well. So yeah, I thought they had a good night. I liked Oklahoma City's night as well.
They
Tonight.
got Wallace, and who else they got?
They got Wallace, and they ended up getting
Keontae
Johnson late.
Keontae Johnson.
Who
the kid from Kansas State.
From Kansas State, who I think
he's good.
I think he's awesome. I love him.
He is.
And they also got Tyson Hunter from Clemson, who's probably a pretty good shooter, right?
Yeah, he's a really good shooter.
Yeah, so I think
that was
talent.
a surprise. I didn't see Tyson Hunter in too many of the mocks. That's for sure.
And they're already good. They're already pretty good with young talent, and they added some more young talent. So I like that. I like OKC tonight. They did
here's a name that I could see with Golden State that I kind of like. Tell me what you think of this name. Paul Reed. Sixers.
I think he's good, but I think he's gonna go get some money, man. This dude's been in the G League.
What about these two names? Jesus M throws these two out. These are interesting names. Drew Timme or Oscar Tshiebwe. Tshiebwe was just a monster rebounder. That's his skill. He rebounds, and Timmy's got great footwork, but he doesn't do anything he's not a great shooter from the perimeter. He's not a good defender. He might get abused on the block, but he does have great offensive footwork on the block. What do you guys?
I think both of those guys are going to play in the league. That's what I think.
Drew Timme would not be a fit for Golden State. The other kid, at least you get a particular skill. He's kind of a Larry Smith type. Hey, just go grab a rebound and then give it to a guy and see if you can go grab another rebound. Mm-hmm. They need a little bit more versatility. They need somebody who's got a true defensive presence and some length. I'm sorry, Drew Timme, you can't do it. The Reed kid in the only guy I'd want to hear that'd be on the Warriors named Reed, outside of Rex Reed, who'd be the ultimate stretch four.
J.R. Reed?
No. Nas Reed.
Yes, Nas Reed kills the Warriors.
You and I both know they can't afford him, so there's no need of us pipe dreaming. But
right.
The Montrezl Harrell piece could be a good piece, and they've got to find a long guy, not a big, but a long.
Last thought, and then we'll get out of here. Tomorrow on 95.7 The Game, and just around the Bay, will Warrior fans pan this draft? Will they celebrate this draft? Will they take a wait and see approach? Will they be losing their mind? What is going to be the theme on the radio from the callers throughout the day, or the hosts? But what do you think's the takeaway here from tonight? Will people preach patience? I noticed Cy jumped in the middle of the stream. Are there going to be people that are pissed at Kerr and pissed at the Warriors? What's the temperature of the room in Warrior Land tomorrow in reaction to it all?
Wait and see.
Wait and see?
Yeah, that's what I think.
I think they're guys that are hosts. Like, I would expect Steiny, because Steiny's an old school basketball guy. He would like their draft. He would like the fact that they got a mature guy and another IQ guy, because it fits the model of what they're saying they want to do. There's going to be a lot of fans who don't really understand basketball very well. They just know hoop. They know what they see on television, that, they didn't get a big guy. They didn't get big. Well, they're not going to get big with a youngster unless they got something unique. And I think the Trayce Davis Jackson piece could be a very unique piece, because if he could round into a second round guy who you could give 20 minutes to on nights when other guys are sitting, and he figures out how to get himself in the rotation to give you some basic minutes, 8 to 9 minutes, maybe in one or two big playoff games, that could be huge for them.
I think it's going to be a split card. I think for the most part, people are going to love the Trayce Jackson Davis move. I think Podziemski is going to be, I think that's going to be that in of itself is going to be a split. I think there's going to be people that like that move. I think there's going to be people that think it was a stretch, and especially when they start talking about on the record that they had him top 11, like that's not something I probably would have said if I was Mike Dunleavy Jr. But I also think it's unfinished. Like this offseason is unfinished. So I would agree with that sentiment. It's about how are you going to fill these other 3 roster spots? Is kind of how I look at it. And because I think they've got 3 veteran minimum slots, they're saving some money down the line in terms of actual cash out of pocket to where they can afford to add 3 $2.5 million players that are probably going to cost them $50 million or something like that when it's all said and done. But they're going to be able to do it because of the savings on Poole down the line and the way that they are going to structure Draymond Green's deal. So I think they did, in part, the Chris Paul trade because they want the flexibility to be able to comfortably attack 3 veteran minimum players, but you never know who veteran minimum players are going to be. A lot of times it's guys who think they're going to get more. You got to wait them out. Sometimes it's guys who are just trying to get another $2 or $3 million who are done and are, trying to find a team, desperate enough to pay them for one more year. So they're going to have to parse through all of that. But I think it's a mixed bag, Larry, to answer your question.
Can I ask you this question, JD?
Sure.
When Mike Dunleavy said that, because you don't have complete context of what the thinking is, like he could easily say, we had him 11th of the guys that we thought could help us, guys that we think can be ready to play in this season and contribute. He might be one of 11 guys that they picture in that group because they may look at even some of the young guys that are talented that got drafted higher as guys that wouldn't necessarily get to the floor because of their areas of weakness, just like Kuminga. So if he came back and said it in that tone, would you be a little bit more comfortable with the number 11?
I think that's fair. I don't think it's something you should admit, though. Like, I don't think you should ever admit that maybe you're going for best fit over best player, even if you are going for best fit over best player. Because to me, you just don't. To me,
just open yourself up for criticism.
Yeah, I just would not admit it. Like I don't think and I don't know this, but my take, given the way the night played out, was to go back to that point, Carl. I don't think they had Cam Whitmore on their board at all.
No,
and then
you can kind of almost tell, huh?
And so when you start talking about like if the young man that they picked was 11, well, what was Cam Whitmore was NA, right? Like he wasn't even on the paper at that point, which is.
He was also NA on some other people's paper.
True. No, and I think Kuminga is an example of why maybe you wouldn't have a guy like Whitmore on. Like, well, if we're struggling to consistently find Kuminga minutes, Whitmore's not going to play. We know that we can't have that because we're going to have a bigger problem if we take somebody that's injured or can't play. Because that's not helping this roster when the goal is for this roster to contend for a championship again.
Let me make this point, though, because we said about an hour plus ago, we were having a conversation about organizations and professionals and how good they are. And that's frustrating to me because literally 2/3 of the organizations are not very good. They're not. 1/3 of the NBA, 10 organizations, you can probably name them, are pretty good at evaluating talent and developing talent. Not everybody's good. The issue is this. Everybody wins because the NBA, for the most part, is a cash cow. So there are no losers. But if you dug deep into these organizations and you look at who has these jobs, and you start to see like the connection tree, you'd be like, what? Well, yeah, I'm the director of player feel good. You'd be like, yeah, my uncle owns a damn team. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, this is not a fair landscape. And that's okay. I mean, it is what it is. But the reality is, like Foss, And I'm not just because you're my friend. I don't think that there are X amount of people who are more talented than you are at evaluating talent. Larry, you were a football scout. You couldn't work for the 49ers as a damn scout? Come on. I know that I can coach in some capacity in the NBA. I'm not saying I'm a head coach. The point I'm making is that the NBA, just like most professional organizations, is very incestuous, right? And a lot of times you assume that people are right for a particular job or they have a particular skill, and that is not the case. Michael Jordan's brother, Larry, is an executive. Thank God that Mike's his brother, because he probably never would have got the opportunity to do what he does. Maybe he's very good, but he has the job because he's Mike's brother.
It's absolutely, and it's not to say that these guys can't do it, but it's unlikely. It's just unlikely. And it's kind of the power structure of the league, and these are power positions, and the owners sometimes will hire their kids and so on and so forth. Guys, incredible stuff. JD, when do you appear next on 95.7? I love hearing your breakdown. Will you be on with Guru and Steiny tomorrow?
Yeah, Steiny and Guru tomorrow is going to be the next time, and then we're sorting out some fill-in opportunities. There's some people on vacation coming up here the next couple of weeks, so we're working through that, as they say. But I'll be on and keep everybody posted. At JD John Dickinson on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to find out, I'm usually posting when I'm going to be on both of those platforms. So look for that. And thanks for having me again.
We love your insight.
Special, JD.
Have you seen the Bill Walton? Have you seen the Bill Walton 30 for 30 3-parter?
I have not, but
I've been watching it. It's awesome.
It's awesome, and you get to see Dave Twardzik, so you'll get to see Steiny.
Okay. I'm in on that, Carl. I'm in. Both. If you guys recommend it, then I'm finding it and I'm recording it.
JD, have a great night, man.
Thanks.
Take care. The great John Dickinson from 95.7 The Game. Red,
Yes,
we should tell everybody about the In the Dungeon show. It's ENTHA Dungeon Show, just like it states right there on the bottom underneath Big Frank Red, which is his Twitter handle. Everybody go to Frank's channel and sign up. We got 500 people hanging in this room at 11:30, 2 hours after we've started. We have 500 people sitting in the room right now, saying this is incredible. So I love it. You want to support the show, the Krug Show. I appreciate it. Hit like and subscribe. But Frank's given us a ton this year. Go to In the Dungeon Show, ENTHA Dungeon Show on YouTube. Give Frank a like. Give him a subscribe. Let's get Frank's momentum going on his YouTube show, everybody, and show Frank the love that he shows us. So, Frank, you got a final thought, and I'd love to as news breaks here in the next few weeks. There's a lot of summertime stuff, and it's a little bit slowed down, but I would definitely love to get you back and get your perspective. It's always appreciated. But promote anything you need to promote or would like to promote.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, man, for everything that you're doing. I'm a sports talk show fan, first and foremost, and what you have done with the Krug Show is simply amazing. And to be a part of it from time to time is a true honor. And everybody out there, Krug laid it down, but just go to In the Dungeon Show and on YouTube and at Big Frank Red. I said that I won't have a guest on my show until I have at least 100 subs. I probably have somewhere around 50 now. So I got some really, really big ideas in terms of who I'm going to have on. But in the meantime, if you just want to hear somebody talk for 45 minutes to an hour, tune in, and I'll put it on Twitter whenever I'm going to do a show. And, thank you to the people who are already starting to find the show. It's building a little momentum. But go subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And Frank, make sure you text me when you're going live. I caught it the other night on Twitter and I retweeted it, but I don't always know when you're doing it. So send me a text and I'll retweet it for you and see if we can drive some love your direction. And Carl, you and I have been talking, NBA draft since Andres Biedrins and Mikael Petrus. And this is my absolute. I mean, I love talking ball with you year round, any night of the week, but this is my favorite night of the year to have you on and to chop it up and talk ball. It's awesome. And I'm thrilled that you made the time for us tonight. And do you have a final thought or anything that you want to promote? Please do.
Hey, let's just be honest. I want you to think of the fun we had tonight. In addition to the three of us, we had JD. We had Barry a Baller, the young stud coming up the ranks. You had the absolute great Damon Bruce on a night when one of his studs from Indiana, the Hoosiers, is going to be on the Warriors. And we had a chance to have so much fun with Cy. I always love the fact that Cy brings all that passion, all that emotion. It's like just enjoying being at the sports bar. The drink is falling on the table. The popcorn is falling in your lap and having a good time. So, I mean, the six of us, and when we added in JD, the seven of us had an amazing time tonight. Larry, you're a legend. You know how I feel. I go all the way back to Dave Del Grande and all the great hosts from back in the day in another life. So I will enjoy it. In fact, we can't forget about even Hank and, of course, the great Ralph Barbieri. So thank you, Larry, for keeping it going. And anytime you need me, I'm here, my friend.
I appreciate you. Carl, have a great night. Take care. Red, have a great night. Good to see you. There you go. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I think I'd put that live stream up against pretty much anything in any medium, radio, television. You just heard, a lot of really informed guys spitting out a lot of information. It got a little heated at times, but you know what? That's the way it is when you're hanging with your buddies. Somebody gets thrown over a table, somebody mixes it up. But, at the end of the day, no hard feelings. And that's just what happens. You get a bunch of guys in the room talking about something they love. You're going to have some people getting loud and people going, overstepping their bounds and turning on each other. But good stuff. I saw people like, Cy's doing this. Cy's a good guy. He just gets fired up. And that's why we love him. And that's why he's a character. And that's why I have him on. DJ Venus says, what a great lineup tonight. An amazing show. We got this one from Carlo P. Carlo, I see that you're in town tomorrow. I'm doing a live stream with Jack Hammer tomorrow, Carlo, at 11. But let's meet in Walnut Creek for lunch. Love to hook it up. So text me in the morning, my friend. Jeff Porter says, absolutely, Larry, you're the best. Appreciate you. What else? Lynetta Allen jumps in here. My first time watching. I'll definitely be back. Well, I appreciate that. All right, this is what we're going to do in the final couple minutes here of the show. Haruku Itoki says, I need to smoke more weed. That's possible as well. My favorite, normally I go with my group of favorite chats, live chats, but I actually have one chat, and let's see if somebody else throws one in here in a second that meets it. But I've got one chat that I thought was really, really great. It's from John Jay. It's from 10:19 p.m. I'm going to play a couple spots. I'm going to come back with what I think is the best singular chat response of the night. But first, let me thank my sponsors. Marin Autoglass. Saeed, the owner of Marin Autoglass, is a brand new sponsor. He's on the bottom of the screen there, the scroll, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. You get a crack in your windshield. They come out, they replace it. They take out the old windshield. They glaze in the new windshield. It's very convenient. You can't beat it. Marin Autoglass. Check them out online, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. Also, the title sponsor of the Krug Show is Pig in a Pickle, and they got two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. Here's what they look like in Marin County.
with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, we're coming down the home stretch on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody enjoyed this Thursday night extravaganza as we are now 2 hours and 16 minutes into our live stream with over 350 people still hanging in the room. One way you can help the channel, if you go to YouTube, I know Father's Day has come and gone, but we got a brand new merch collection. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a hoodie, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Krueger Show, and there's a link, and you can buy gear. You can buy merchandise. Please do. It helps support the show. Also, we are sitting today at 19,179 subs. So, hey, man, if I'm with, close to 500 people in the chat tonight or more. We actually got closer to 600 at one point, almost 350 people still hanging. If you're in the chat right now and you haven't hit like or subscribe, please do. If you hit like, it just helps the algorithm. More people find the shows, and it helps us grow the channel. And if you hit you'll subscribe. You hit that notification bell, and you'll just be alerted on your phone every time we go live. I'm going live. I went live 41 times last month, so I'm going live, roughly once or twice a day. Let's say some days 3 or 4 times, but that's basically our schedule. I'm going live again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. with the great Jack Hammer from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and it'll be a co-branded show, be partly on my channel, partly on his channel. But if you could hit like and subscribe, that would absolutely help the channel immeasurably. Thanks to Len Dempsey. Thanks to my son, Kevin Krueger, who is putting together a lot of great videos on the 49ers, the Warriors, the Giants, and those are up under videos, and it's really doing a great job growing the channel. We got some big news to announce next week, and I can't give it away right now. We're also, we had a little bit of a feud going with a particular content creator, and I reached out to him today and said, hey, you know what? Life's too short, bro. Let's get together, have a beer, and kiss and make up, figuratively. And he agreed. So I'm going to go up and see him, and we're going to patch things up and get back together and start doing more stuff together. I hope. At least that's my hope. And so I'll have more details on that next week. You know me, I like to fight, but I also like to put it away. I don't like to fight all night. It's just one of those things. I got strong opinions. Other people have strong opinions, but in this situation, a guy that I really, really like, and I just kind of got a little too heated, and it got to a point where it made me uncomfortable. And we've had kind of a quiet period now, and I just figured, you know what, I'm going to reach out to him and just say, hey, you know what, let's make amends and move on. So I'll have more details on that. I've got more details about what we're doing 49er coverage-wise in the upcoming year coming up here in the next week. We're doing a lot of content. We'll continue to on the Warriors, the Giants, the Niners. Training camp is just around the corner. I'm trying to get our channel to 20,000 subs before training camp begins. So we're roughly, 820 subs away from 20,000. When we get to 20,000, I'm sending Grant Cohn and his father a nice bottle of wine, because they've helped me immeasurably and inspired me. And I just want to thank those guys, and we'll be doing so when we get to 20,000, because Grant's had a huge impact on this channel and helping me get started on YouTube and transfer my radio to YouTube. And I can't thank him enough. I really enjoyed this track. And shows like tonight are why I really love doing this, because I booked it. Everybody here was here because I wanted them to be here, and they're all really good. And that it really dawned on me a few months ago, that, I've got a lot of good friends as far as content, and we're bringing some phenomenal stuff right to you. So I hope you guys appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy it more than anything. Appreciate it. Yeah, whatever, whether you appreciate it or not, it doesn't matter to me, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're entertained by streams like this and the good people that I'm bringing to the mix. And as you can tell, these people are all my friends. Anyway, but we are at 19,180 subs right now. If you could hit like and subscribe, that would help the channel immeasurably. If you buy merchandise, that helps the channel as well. And it's just been an amazing ride. We've added about 1,000 subs in the last month. We've had almost 700,000 views of our content this month, and this has been the slowest month in the last year because football is in a dormant stage right now. What else? I had a couple of things that I want to mention. Now they're eluding me, but we're going to do a lot of good content coming up here in the weeks and days. Oh, Saturday morning, the coach is going to be in the house. The coach is on with Grant, and we got in contact with one another, and I said, Coach, let's do some streams. So Saturday morning at 9 a.m., the coach will be in the house for the first time, and we'll chop it up on the Niners and the quarterback situation and all the questions surrounding the 49ers, with camp looming just around the corner. So really enjoy doing this. I hope you guys are enjoying it as much on your end as I am on my end. All right. We got a couple on here that I want to get to. One, Luca Luna. Hey, Luca. He says, Larry, can you guys cover the Utah 3 picks in the first round? The Jazz is my team. Yeah, no problem. So Utah went Taylor Hendricks out of Central Florida, Keontae George out of Baylor, and Bryce Sensabaugh. I don't know a lot about the Baylor kid, but he's obviously got a really nice shot. And I did see him once or twice this year. Hendricks is interesting. He's a power forward from Central Florida who I think's got huge potential. I haven't done a deep dive on him. The Ohio State kid who, it's interesting. I like the Ohio State kid the most. He's about 230 pounds, small forward, great NBA body. I'll say this. For having 9, 16, and 28, I thought Utah could have done better. And I'm not saying I know every player and do a deep dive on every guy. I don't. But I know a lot of them. And I really thought with 9, 16, and 24 that they would have done a little bit better than they actually did. So I don't want to rip Utah's draft, but I was a little unimpressed, though I do like Sensabaugh. All right, the starred chat is this one right here. John J. He says, Trayce equals Draymond. Older prospects projected to go mid-late first round, but dropped likely because of the lack of size and lack of upside. But the dude can play. can be a mix of Draymond and Kevon Looney, but more athletic. And I think I watched a ton of Trayce Jackson-Davis. This is Dale Davis's son. And there's just so much to like about Trayce. I think this was maybe the best move so far in the Dunleavy run here was Trayce Jackson-Davis. I would have considered taking him at 19. And the fact that they could get him late, very impressive kid. He really is. He's a 5. I don't think he's a 4. He's a 5. He's an undersized 5. He's from Greenwood, Indiana. He was heavily recruited. And, some NBA Draft.net compares him to Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles has got a big-time outside shot. This kid's outside shot is in the developmental stages. But as far as a rebounder, he can do that for you. A passer, he can do that for you. Shot blocker, we're talking about a guy that ranked 4th in all of Division I in blocks per game. He averaged 2.9 blocks per game. Mobility, athleticism, he shows it on both ends of the floor. He tied for 6th at the NBA Combine with a 33-inch standing vertical. He gets off the floor. He's got a quick second jump. He sets great screens in the pick and roll game. He's got lateral quickness. He's a nice defender. He can switch. He plays bigger than he is. He's got 7'2" wingspan. He's got low post moves over either shoulder. He's got long arms. He can block shots. What I like about him the most is he can pass, and you can run your offense through this guy. Now, he's a developing shooter, but I see a lot of Draymond Green. To me, this is the guy that is really the most exciting guy. He's a lefty. He's smooth. He doesn't try to do a bunch of things he can't do. He runs the floor. He's got a great body for the game. I mean, Dale Davis logged huge minutes up and down the floor in the NBA for a lot of years. And this guy's got post moves. And he's got long arms. He's got spin moves. He's a quick jumper. He's a quick second jumper. He's a good shot blocker from the weak side. I love Trayce Jackson-Davis. And the more I watched him, the more I thought, you know what? This guy's game is going to grow by leaps and bounds. So good athleticism. He can play defense. Pretty strong. He's an undersized 5. So he's a 6'9" guy, but he plays a little bigger because he's a shot blocker. I mean, there aren't too many guys. I mean, think about it this way. What makes Draymond Green so special? He's a shot blocker. He's a distributor. And, so he can pass the ball and block shots, and he can rebound, and he knows how to play. And he came out of a program in the Big Ten where they coach position defense. And in some ways, he was very polished. All those same things you could say about Draymond, you can say about TJD, as they call him, Trayce Jackson-Davis. So very, very excited about the addition of Trayce Jackson-Davis. And I like PBJ, don't get me wrong. Isn't it interesting they moved PBJ for a guy named TJD? PBJ for TJD. What'd you think? I need that answer ASAP. But anyway, I like John Jay. Great call. Trayce equals Draymond. I actually have somewhere in my notebook here me writing that exactly down. That I don't know if he's a good compliment to Draymond because they're a little bit redundant, but he could be the future Draymond. And a lot of times when guys become seniors, especially in their big conferences, people are like, they've topped out. Did Draymond top out? No. And this guy hasn't either. So I really like this kid's ability to contribute in a lot of ways. He knows how to play. To me, he's going to be a very, very fun player to watch. So I really like that one. I really like the addition of TJD, and I really like John Jay's comment there. Cosmo, one last one here. He says, Trayce had a great college career, but I don't think he can be anything more than a backup. Can't shoot threes at all. Too undersized to play center. No way he's better than Drew Timme, for example. Oh, no, he's way better than Drew Timme. Drew Timme's a liability on the low block, has no shot blocking or rim protection ability. Drew Timme's a smart player with great footwork, but he can't pass like this guy. Drew Timme's nowhere close as strong or as athletic as this guy either. Drew Timme was a very good player at Gonzaga, and I'd be fine with Drew Timme getting an invite to camp, from the Warriors, because there's some attributes of Drew Timme's game I like. But Trayce has got NBA upside, far greater than Drew Timme, in my opinion. And once again, it's just my opinion. All right. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Coming up on midnight, 2 hours and 30 minutes in to the live stream. Still about 330 people in the room. But have a great night. For my son, Kevin, for Len Dempsey, and for all of our guests tonight, have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle.